Once upon a time, there was a little boy at the age of 3 started to play his first video game. Realizing the amount of fun of his new favorite hobby, he then went on to play quite a lot of video games growing up. He then decided at the age of 19 that he wanted to collect and obtain not only all of the past games he's played, but also some of the best video games to ever been released. Trust me, this story does have an ending. What I'm trying to say is that I probably would not be here if it wasn't for the first video game character I have laid my eyes on. Crash Bandicoot. 1996 was a pretty cool year for video games. We saw Super Mario 64, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Mario Kart 64, and of course the other game we're talking about in this video, Crash Bandicoot. Being developed by a team of Naughty Dog, a hungry gaming producers at the time wanted to stand out in the gaming community. Sure, they've made other games in the past, but none of them really gotten them to bigger heights. Then with the arrival of Universal Interactive Studios and with their big contracts, they signed Naughty Dog and they worked day and night to create Willy the Wombat. I'm not even joking. In early production, the name they were going for was Willy the Wombat, only as a temporary name so they can come up with something better. Then just before releasing a demo, the team decided to name him Crash Bandicoot, and you probably know the rest from here on out due to its history. So we will be discussing about Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation 1 and slowly but hopefully working our way down to other Crash games developed by Naughty Dog. I know it kinda seems like I'm re-reviewing some of these games, but kinda think of it as a re-look, if you will. Kinda going through the game all over again, but a much more updated feel. To be completely honest, when it comes down to choosing which Crash game from the original trilogy I feel like playing, I always go, yeah, let's play some Crash 2 and 3. But as for Crash 1, I go, well, I'll just leave it aside and see if I feel like playing it. I always seem to ignore Crash 1 all the time, and today, with any luck, I'll be able to explain why. But for now, let's begin. Our story for everyone's favorite orange fluffy boy kicks off at a castle when we see our main villain for the game and the entire series, Dr. Neo Cortex. Along with his sidekick and Brio, they experiment with different animal creatures and giving them superhuman strength. The next subject Cortex was working on is a Bandicoot, and despite the warning and Brio tries to give, he ignores him and tests out the Bandicoot anyway in the Cortex Vortex. The Vortex denies Crash Bandicoot and manages to escape just in time. Afterwards, Cortex decided to experiment on the female Bandicoot named Torna. Because Crash and Torna have grown a bond together while being taken, Crash Bandicoot makes the decision to go after Cortex, stop his plans, and save Torna. Now when you look at it, the story does share some resemblance from the story of Super Mario for the NES. Bowser takes Princess Peach hostage and it's up to Mario to stop Bowser and save Peach. But comparing the story to Crash Bandicoot isn't a big complaint, and the story overall is pretty simple to follow. Just a simple beat the main villain and get the girl. Average in superhero movies, but still pretty effective. The character designs are pretty good, even if Crash's body type looks like an upside down Dorito, but other than that, I do like the designs of the characters. Especially Torna's, which she's definitely got my attention. Oh man, is it getting hot in here? The gameplay structure is what you would expect. Going from A to B, using your spin attack on enemies, platforming your way around objects, and collecting items. One of the items you can collect are Wumpa Fruits. They are your coins for expanding your life count. If you do collect an extra life token or 100 Wumpa Fruits, you'll get an additional life. They can be out on the open for you to see, or inside these boxes you'll have to break. But however, if Crash loses all of his lives, you'll get a game over and have to start again. The main item to collect are gems. You earn these by breaking all the boxes in a single level. The game will tell you if you have collected a gem or mention that you still have boxes to find and hit. Hey, great job, but you missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But other than that, you did great. There's different boxes you'll see along your journey. You have your standard boxes, but also checkpoints, extra lives as mentioned earlier, jumping boxes with arrows pointing up, invincible boxes that you can't break, and finally the TNT crate. When you bounce on it, a timer will count down. Once it reaches the 0, the TNT crate will explode, so you might want to take a few steps backwards when that occurs or Crash will get hurt. You also have 2 keys to collect as well. You can earn them by completing a Cortex bonus stage. Crash Bandicoot does have protection, and I don't mean that as a one night stand. I mean protection from taking damage. A mask named Aku Aku joins in the battle and will help protect Crash from harm. Crash can hold up to 2 masks, but once collecting the 3rd mask, Crash can be invincible to any attack for a limited amount of time. It's really useful to have in your arsenal in case you run into more tougher situations, but during my playthrough, I noticed something a bit off with the invincibility. I'm not sure if I discovered a glitch or something, but I do know that this part caught me off guard. But that's some of the gameplay features. How's the graphics? Well, for a game that was released in 1996, it looks really nice. I like the different shades of colors, and the 3D animation looks pretty good. At a time where we were transforming from the side-scrolling 2D animation to a more 3D animation to when the camera is behind the character, I say this was a commercial success at the time. The level designs here are again pretty good. You can visit and explore places like the islands, rivers, caves, Cortex's castle, and many more. And there's also the part where your heart is pumping very rapidly during a bridge level when you're trying to complete a jump and hoping you don't fall to your death. While Crash Bandicoot may do some platforming, but there are at times the gameplay does change. One of the levels involves riding a hog to complete a level. The music hits, the nostalgia feels very hard for me, even though I didn't play this game at all as a kid, but when I hear that tune, I know exactly where that's from. It sounds really catchy. From start to finish, I say the soundtrack is consistently good. But since we've covered all the good stuff about this game, it's probably fair to mention some downfalls. Up first, the controls. They have not aged well, unfortunately. At times, I don't feel like I'm totally in control of Crash with his jumping, and again, the bridge level does not help out. While I'm at it, the camera placement in some levels are pretty awful looking back. I feel like when I'm jumping from one platform to another platform, I'm pretty much hoping to God that I make it, rather than sounding confident in myself. It feels like at times I'm under jumping or over jumping. Naughty Dog definitely have improved the camera and the controls in later games, but for the first game in the series, there was always going to be some minor errors. As for the difficulty, man, sometimes this game can be brutal in terms of challenge. I would say the first Crash game is, no second thought, one of the hardest games in the original trilogy. The game's focus is platforming, and it makes sure that you are aware of that. It starts off slow, holding your hand and guiding through some platforms, but later on, Crash Bandicoot 1 just literally throws you in the water filled with sharks, hoping that you've learned enough and sees if you can sink or swim. This game is hard, but its design is built with patience. You cannot just simply walk into a level and let your emotions get to you if you keep failing. You have to think clearly and understand the patterns, and then, only then, you will complete the level. It is difficult, but not impossible. And speaking of brutal, some of the checkpoint placements in later games can be pretty tough. So you jump into a level, go through endless of difficult platforms, and trying to avoid death as best as you can. Then all of a sudden, you make one tiny mistake, lose a life, and just like that, you start the level all over again. I'm guessing it has also frustrated a few gamers back in the day. Let's talk about the bonus stages. In each level, there's a bonus stage you can partake, and the way to unlock it is by collecting 3 character tokens that features either Torna, Embryo, or Dr. Cortex. Once you have collected all 3, then you'll be transferred to a bonus stage. Some of the bonus stages are easy at first, but then gets challenging as you move on. If you complete a bonus stage, or even earning a gem, you'll be able to save the game. which I kind of find it weird that that's one of the only ways to save the game is by completing a bonus stage or earning a gem. Why not just save the game while you're in your hub world? Well, I have no idea. But however, if you fail during the bonus stages or fail to get a gem, you cannot go back to it unless you restart the level again. And that must have been frustrating back in the day. But hang on, this gets even better. Remember how I talked about the gems and earning them by breaking all the boxes? Well, I only half explained it and wanted to only mention the other half in this section. Not only you have to break all the boxes to get a gem, but you have to do it without dying. So for anyone that wants to 100% this game, if you die in a single level, you might as well reset the level all over again. And this is where the challenge in terms of grinding truly takes place. Sure, finishing the story is one thing, but it's a totally different ball game when you have to collect everything. So good luck to all the completionists out there. As for the bosses go, I love the different variety of bosses. You have the tribe leader in Papu Papu, the crazy and deranged Ripperoo, the very beefy and muscular Koala Con, who'll probably get a contract in WWE by the way, and the gangster himself, Pinstripe. You also have Embryo and Dr. Cortex as the bosses as well towards the end of the game. But most of the bosses here are pretty easy to defeat. You just need to learn the layout and what movements they take, then before you know it, you pretty much have beaten that boss. I think my favorite one would have to be Dr. Cortex, due to that soundtrack you can listen to, and he is rather hard to beat at times if you're not too focused. My not so favorite ones are Papu Papu and Pinstripe, as all you do is perform the same thing over and over to defeat them. So once you beat Cortex, you save Tawna and they ride off as the game ends, hopefully seeing more of Tawna in the next game. Spoiler alert, she's not in the next game. I think it's because she was too revealing for the younger audience, which I can understand why. And if it wasn't for that, we may never have seen Coco in future installments. And one of the cool parts about this game is once you have collected all the gems and the keys, you can actually skip the entire boss battle of Cortex and Tawna will be waiting for you to make your escape. Afterwards, you'll get a Where Are They Now segment on all the villains and see what was the aftermath. But you do have to complete the game 100% in order to get that ending. Or you could do what most people do, and that's putting in a cheat code, and before you know it, you have completed the game just like that to show off to all of your friends that you are the one true master of video games. Guys and gals, I've done it. I've finally beaten Crash Bandicoot 100%. I'm the greatest! Comparing this game to Crash 2 and Crash 3, Crash 1 is extremely outdated as hell. I started playing Crash 2 first, then Crash 3, then finally Crash 1 so you could understand how I'm feeling. The controls and jumping feels weird, the bosses for the most part are way too easy, and the unusual way to save the game left me feeling frustrated at times cause I wanted to complete the bonus levels but I end up dying. It may seem like I don't enjoy this game, but that's entirely false. It's one of the PlayStation classics, and this game helped put Naughty Dog and Sony on the map. The game looks great for its time, the soundtrack is super catchy, and the designs of the levels are nice to look at. If you do want to try this game out, I highly suggest you play it on the Insane Trilogy as the gameplay is more updated. But that doesn't mean you should avoid this version. I recommend trying the PlayStation 1 version at least once to understand how it all began for Crash Bandicoot. When Naughty Dog released the first Crash Bandicoot game, it became an instant classic. But there was room for improvement. Oh, wait a second. I already said this before in my first video. Let me see if I can fix the script up. It shouldn't take too long. Okay, that should do it. Nostalgia is a fascinating topic to discuss. It comes in many shapes or forms, and it varies from one person to another. And to me, when I think about nostalgia and the video gaming genre, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back will always come to my mind. I always replay this game at least once a year because I have a loving relationship with Cortex Strikes Back. Not an actual relationship though. Without it, I may have never had a massive passion to experience some fantastic video games I've gone to try out, from Fallout New Vegas, Persona 5, and Ghost of Tsushima. Now this video is a milestone video for me personally because this video marks my 100th review on this channel. Yep, I've officially made it to 100 without any build up leading to this event whatsoever. I don't usually take YouTube seriously, as I just like to make videos for fun, but it is cool to look back and realize how far I've come over the years, for better or worse. So I just wanted to take this time to say thank you for allowing me to share my journey, and I hope to continue doing so. To celebrate this milestone, I figured it was time to make a relook video on the first review I created, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. Has my opinion changed or remained the same? Let's tackle this game and find out. The story opens up immediately after the events of Crash Bandicoot 1. Cortex gets defeated as he falls down below. Apparently he survives the massive fall, but regardless, he finds a power crystal and plots his new plan. 1 year goes by, and Cortex and his new henchman, Engine, look around for the other power crystals. Still, without any allies to turn to for assistance, Cortex comes up with a brilliant plan to manipulate Crash Bandicoot to get the crystals for Cortex.
You fool! Do you think I'm unaware of the situation? If we don't have any friends left on the surface, then we need to find an enemy.
Meanwhile, Coco, Crash's sister, asks Crash to retrieve some batteries for Coco's laptop. Finding batteries in the middle of the jungle. Yeah, good luck with that. Crash ends up getting teleported to a warp room, and so this is where the game begins. Crash goes out to many locations, finding some power crystals, all while Coco tries to hack into the warp room to try and explain the truth to Crash. The story is fine overall. Storytelling wasn't all that important back in the day compared to now, where story is an absolute must in a video game, but here, I don't mind the plot in Cortex Strikes Back. It's a good way to continue the rivalry of Crash and Cortex and see how the story will unfold here. The one question I did have to ask myself is, what happened to Torna? In Crash 1, she was an important character in the story, but now, in Crash 2, she's nowhere to be seen. The main reason is that the first game received major success from the younger audience, and Naughty Dog didn't want any bad publicity. And with melons like those, I can see why. The graphics do look better compared to the first game. It looks more cleaner and smoother, and the characters look a lot nicer as well. Especially with Crash Bandicoot's model, even though he still has that upside down Dorito look. And while you get to see past returning characters like Cortex, Embryo, and Ripperoo, you also get to see new characters like Coco and Engine as mentioned earlier, the Komodo brothers, sword-wielding Komodo dragons, and Tiny Tiger, a massive tiger with a temper. He's also one of the most loyal minions to Dr. Cortex. The gameplay, while similar to the first game, is that you go through a number of enemies, collect Wumpa fruits, and make your way to the end. There are technical improvements to the gameplay to make it feel updated. For starters, what I first noticed is the control handling. Not only is it more responsive in Cortex Strikes Back, but it feels tighter too. In Crash 1, I felt it had that slippery feel to it, as in I believe I didn't have full control of Crash himself, or itself, I don't know, but in Crash Bandicoot 2, I fully have control of Crash's movement. Having tight controls in a Crash Bandicoot game would later be an important feature in Crash 3 and in Crash Team Racing, so this I like to think was the beginning of something cool. Crash also has new moves to perform. Crash can slide and crouch jump, which takes the gameplay formula to another level. Naughty Dog introduces a new box type called the Nitro Crate, which explodes as soon as it receives physical contact. You can see that new ideas were being placed here, which works well in my opinion. The level designs are really nice too. Not only do you get to check out the jungle themed as before, but there's also new places to check out. from the snow, sewers, ruins, and a futuristic area as well. Most of the levels will involve you platforming your way to the end, but some other levels feature some vehicles to try out. You have a jet ski, riding a polar bear. Also, I'm very sorry for the sins I'm committing, please forgive me. And a jetpack you can hover around in. Apart from the polar bear, the controls for the jet ski and the jetpack are not as good as I remembered. It can be tricky to control them initially with their speed and momentum. It's not terrible by any means, but it does feel a bit slippery when trying to rush through it. Crash Bandicoot ends up in a warp room, and in each warp room there are 5 levels. If you want to go up to the next warp room, you have to go to each level and make it to the end with a power crystal. You'll need at least 5 power crystals in order to do so. The great thing about Cortex Strikes Back is that you can save the game whenever you want to, compared to the first game which you had to save the game via a bonus area. In Crash 2, you can save the game as many times as you like, and it's really convenient. Automatically, this feature alone makes this game better than Crash 1. The OST is really great overall, and there are just so many great tracks to listen to. I won't bore you with playing a few songs like I did before, but give it a listen and see what you think. Other than power crystals, you can also collect gems. How do you get them? By breaking the boxes in a single level, of course. You have your standard gems, but there are also colored gems too. Collecting them will involve some outside the box thinking, funny puns lol. Once you have collected a colored gem, you can traverse to a different section of the level, but even harder to get through. Another area you can travel to is the death route. The only way for it to be available is to find the skull platform without losing a life. And if you do lose a life, then the platform will have an outline so you won't be able to jump on it. And yeah, the death routes test your timing and skill levels, so best of luck. The boss fights are not the best I've witnessed in a Crash Bandicoot game. Don't get me wrong, Engine provides a good challenge, but other than that, Ripperoo, Komodo Brothers, and Tiny Tiger are pretty simple and lackluster to me. They fall under the same category of doing the same method 3 times, and that's all folks. And plus, you already know how I feel about Cortex's boss battle, don't get me started on that. I discussed it before under my top 5 disappointing final bosses, which you can check out here. Did the link pop up? Ah, there it is. Thanks, future me. I honestly don't care how many times I've replayed this game. At the end of the day, Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back still holds up. Yeah, it does look outdated for a PlayStation 1 video game in the year 2023, which is why I recommend trying out the Insane Trilogy for modern gamers. All 3 original Crash games from the PlayStation 1 era, remade from the ground up for modern day standards. And the only difference is, the remake version has relics to partake in. But that doesn't mean you should sleep on the original version. It's still fun to try out, from the tight controls, nice level designs, and amazing soundtrack to listen to. Sure, the boss fights could have been handled better, and I'm not a fan of the control handling for a couple of the vehicle stages, but overall, this is a great video game that really sets the bar high for future 3D platform games out there. If you haven't tried this version yet, you are missing out, my friend, because sometimes in life, in order to appreciate the future, we have to give thanks to the past. Naughty Dog has been on fire as of late, releasing 2 Crash Bandicoot games that were successful, one of them putting PlayStation on the map, while the other one convinced gamers to buy a PlayStation. But has Naughty Dog played their cards a bit too early? Because Crash Bandicoot 2 is a really good game, and one of the best platform games of all time. A year later, they once again made another Crash Bandicoot game. And is it better than Crash 2? No, not really. Let me explain why as I review Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Let's get the story out of the way first, because I have quite a few things to talk about this game. The story picks up right after the true ending in Crash 2, as part of Cortex's ship hits an ancient ruin. An evil mask was released by the name of Uka Uka, Aku Aku's evil twin brother. This brings us to Aku Aku having dialogue.
Uka Uka is free. No, it cannot be. Evil, great evil has come.
And even though Aku Aku having dialogue was completely out of nowhere, at least I can take the story a bit serious. We cut to Uka Uka talking to Cortex, and it's revealed that Cortex was taking orders from Uka Uka. He gives Cortex one more chance, but this time, Uka Uka will be beside Cortex to help him on his quest for world domination. Meanwhile, Aku Aku says that he locked up Uka Uka many years ago to protect the world. Now freed, it's up to Crash and Coco to stop Uka Uka and Cortex once and for all. There are 5 levels in each section, and each level has a power crystal. Collect all the 5 crystals and you get to fight a boss, yada yada yada. We've heard this before. The bosses include, this time around, Tiny Tiger, and 2 new characters. One of them is Dingodile, a half dingo, half crocodile with a flamethrower. An end trophy, Master of Time, an engine, and of course the final boss being Cortex and Uka Uka. And I have one thing to say to Naughty Dog. Thank you. Thank you, Naughty Dog. Thank you for finally giving us a great final boss. Uka Uka seen that Cortex was a terrible final boss in the last 2 games, and because of that, he made it much more interesting and much more difficult. To Naughty Dog, I say, I take my hat off to you. One of the things they added was a slot box. A slot box can change from a mystery box to an Uka Uka box. I'm sorry, Aku Aku box. Ugh, I always get it mixed up all the time. But with the slot box, you have a limited amount of time. Once the time runs out, the slot box will turn into an unbreakable box. It's pretty useless. They also added power upgrades. Where you beat a boss, you earn an upgrade. These include a stronger body slam, jumping higher, spinning longer, a bazooka, and the ability to run faster. While I was playing the game, I started to notice something. There are quite a few vehicle levels in this game. Okay, I take that back. There are a lot of vehicle levels in this game. Crash 3 goes way overboard with vehicle levels, and some of the vehicles control like shite. Some examples are Coco's jet ski and Crash's motorcycle. Did I mention that Coco's a playable character in this game? Well, you can play as her, but only in vehicle levels, which is a shame. A huge shame. Another thing Crash can do is swim underwater. But there's one thing I do not like about Crash Bandicoot levels is the one that you swim under goddamn water. I haven't talked about the gameplay or the soundtrack yet, because it's the same Crash Bandicoot style that we know and love. The gameplay is great and the soundtrack is excellent as always. Crash 3 is probably one of the best looking games on the PlayStation console. Another thing I liked about this game is the level designs. While you're trying to find a power crystal, you explore places back in time or into the future. From the medieval times to the Egyptian times, Crash 3 definitely excels in that topic.
Defeated again! This is not fair! Maybe I should retire to a nice big beach with a nice big drink and a woman with nice big bags of ice for my head.
It's not over, Bandicoot. There are still the gems. We still have a chance to triumph.
After beating Cortex while having all the power crystals, you once again must get all the gems and something else as well to get the true ending. These are called relics. Oh boy, oh boy. The relics are the worst thing that has ever happened to Crash Bandicoot. Think about it. Why were the first 2 Crash Bandicoot games very successful? Because they were designed as a strategy game. Crash 1 and 2 were designed with patience. If you slowly take your time, you realize that it's not as difficult as you thought. But in Crash 3, the game is still designed with patience, but now you have a timer on, so your brain is forcing you to rush very quickly around obstacles. It becomes a chore to get all the relics. And yes, even the vehicle levels have a gem and a relic. Naughty Dog tried to add new things, which does sound good on paper, but the execution sucked. From the relics to the slot box and so many vehicle levels. I know I've said bad things about Crash 3,
but it's still a pretty awesome game. The gameplay and the soundtrack are great, and the game looks fantastic, the boss fights have improved, and the level designs are brilliant.
It's not very often I will label a video game as one of the greatest video games of all time. In order for video games to achieve that status, the game has to be flawless and feature a ton of exciting gameplay to a point where that game in particular will stand to the test of time. But that of course will always be subjective depending on how you view video games and if they should be ranked as the GOAT. Crash Bandicoot has always been my comfort zone for casual gaming, and even just listening to the OST on its own while completing everyday tasks. And while not all Crash Bandicoot games are perfect as demonstrated time after time, they can provide some replay value and fun memories to last a lifetime. So on that note, how is it that for a Crash Bandicoot game highly focused on 3D platforming would release, in my opinion, a banger of a video game in Crash Team Racing? A kart racing video game that is supposedly a spin-off title? I have no idea, but what I do know is that Naughty Dog already developed 3 Crash games. Their contract with Universal Interactive Studios was about to expire, and Naughty Dog had just enough time to create one more Crash game, only this time as a kart racer. And while the people behind CTR probably thought to themselves that this would be just a simple racing game, I like to think from my perspective what they didn't realize until the game's release was the fact that Naughty Dog developed quite possibly the best racing video game of all time. Eat your heart out, Mario Kart. But in order to understand why that's the case, let's dive into some good old Crash Team Racing. The game opens with a narrator talking to the player, hyping them up for the game, and I always get excited every time I hear his voice.
Fasten your seatbelts for another Naughty Dog creation.
Even hearing him say Naughty Dog also sends chills, literal chills. We then witness Crash Bandicoot holding the trophy while staring deep within your soul, and believe it or not, Crash Team Racing does have a plot to tell. The story begins with a racing tournament going on until a spaceship arrives near Earth, and this is where we see Nitrous Oxide, who claims to be the fastest racer in the galaxy. And his face looks like a spoon. Oxide wants to challenge whoever is the fastest racer on Earth. If Earth wins, then Oxide will leave the planet alone. But if Oxide wins...
If I win, I'll turn your entire globe into a concrete parking lot and make you my slaves.
Oh no, don't turn our planet into a parking lot. That's more life-threatening than a chef putting cream in spaghetti carbonara. And so, the challenge has been accepted, and the story continues on over in Adventure Mode. You select which characters to play as, go through races to win trophies, until you have earned the right to face Oxide in an epic showdown. I really do like the story here, it's straight to the point, and you have a purpose for wanting to finish the story, and that is to put simply, be the best. But back to the character selection in Adventure Mode. You can choose to play as either Crash, Cortex, Coco, Engine, Tiny Tiger, Dingodile, Polar Bear, and Puma. Each character will have their own stats, so while some races may have good turning ability and not so great speed, others may have great speed but not good turning. Crash and Cortex are probably a good option to start off with since they are the all-rounders. For this playthrough, I'm selecting Cortex because his face scares me and I'm not sure what would happen if I didn't. And after naming my profile Fart, we can now begin by looking at the Uka Uka animation for when he talks to the player to give out some advice on how to play the game. It's a bit strange to look at and it hasn't aged well. Then again, for a 1999 video game, I can try to give it the benefit of the doubt, but it does look awkward to see this animation, just as much as Crash Nitro Kart as well back over in 2003. In Adventure Mode, you have a small hub area to drive around. You can select racetracks and other game modes, which will be explained later on in this video. And one of the reasons why I love exploring the hub world is every time you enter a different area, the beat and instrument of the song that plays will change. It's a small detail, but a detail that really makes a huge impact on the overall experience. Okay, enough messing around, let's get into the gameplay. The graphics look great for its time, bright, colourful, very detailed, and nicely presentable. I believe Naughty Dog has always been the standout gaming developers when it comes to the graphical look in their games, and CTR is no exception. Even if Crash does stare into my soul. You start off in a race and right from the get-go you will immediately notice just how tight the controls are. I've mentioned countless times on how control handling in a racing game has to be on point for some sick turns and dodging obstacles. And if the controls are not good, then what you'll get is an unpleasant experience. Well, the way you control your kart in CTR is great. I feel that with every turn and every drift, I have full range of control with my kart. And I know that if I bumped into the wall and a fellow competitor, I know for a fact that it was my dumb fault and not the controls. With control handling, you can also boost when you are drifting. When the exhaust pipe starts to smoke up, that is the perfect time to start boosting. Or you can also look at the boost meter. I don't fucking know, I don't judge the way you play games. And by pulling it off 3 times in a row, you'll gain more speed, which is crucial for later races in adventure mode. And depending on how many times you do it over and over, you can obtain even more speed than before, meaning that you'll be flying through the track with 0 issues whatsoever. It also becomes satisfying when you end up in last place and boosting your way into first place at the very end. Also, I'm not sure how Cortex managed to fit in that gap since his head is massive. Well, I suppose he got himself ahead of the competition. And on that note, most tracks will offer shortcuts to execute. By successfully performing a shortcut, it can help you get one step closer into the lead. Some will be pretty obvious, but others can take time to make it to the other side. It's all about practice at the end of the day. And there can also be shortcuts you might have never heard of before, and you feel that sense of accomplishment when doing it. And combine the shortcuts with the speed and the controls, you get what is an amazing experience. Oh, for fuck's sake. CTR also offers weapons to use. You get a weapon by driving over the boxes. The weapons can help attack the competition out in front or defend your position. You have rockets, potions, TNTs, and many more. You can also upgrade your weapons as well by collecting 10 Wumpa Fruits, allowing your weapon to have an increase in power or having multiple weapons to use. It's really handy to have them on standby, and by using those weapons, it can change the outcome. And as for the racetracks themselves, I really love the design of them, from the sharp turns to drift around, to the boost pads to gain a lot of speed, and the giant polar bear frozen in ice. At least I won't have any more nightmares of the bear chasing me. As you go through track after track, you'll notice some very familiar set pieces from past Crash Bandicoot games, like in the Sewer Speedway from the sewer levels, and Dingo Canyon from the motorcycle levels. No matter which racetrack you come across, you can always notice the similarities with each track, taking inspiration from the original trilogy. As you collect 4 trophies, you'll be introduced to the boss races. The bosses you'll be facing are Ripperoo, Papu Papu, Komodo Joe, Pinstripe, and defeating all 4 of them will see you clashing against Oxide. You face these bosses in a one-on-one race, and at first it seems to go alright, but then TNTs, nitro crates, and potions will be dropped and you have to do your best to avoid them while winning the race. It might seem unfair at first, but I actually welcome the challenge. It becomes less predictable, and instead of mowing through the same track you've already raced in, you have another layer of challenge, and it's a really good idea in my opinion. But as far as Oxide's boss race is concerned,
You bastard!
yeah, the dickhead gets an early head start. Meanwhile, he throws everything he has at you just so that you don't get in the lead. It does become a lot more difficult when the track becomes narrow, and it'll be even more tough to maneuver. But hey, at least I get to perform this shortcut. Yeah, eat my dust, Pickle Oxide. And when you do defeat Oxide, the game doesn't really come to an end. You have to go back and obtain the relics and CTR tokens, and then you'll be able to race Oxide one more time. What are CTR tokens, you may ask, despite you probably already know what it is and the fact that this game is over 25 years old as of this recording? Jesus Christ, I'm getting old. As you go through 3 laps, you have to collect the letters C, T, and R, and once you have collected all 3, then you have to try to win the race. And as for the relics, it's pretty much the same as Crash 3, except you're racing against time to break the time boxes and get that platinum relic. And by the way, the relics work extremely well in Crash Team Racing. There's also crystal challenges. The way to beat it is to collect all the power crystals before the timer runs out. There's 1 crystal challenge in every hub area, and by completing all of them, will reward you with a purple gem. Yep, even the gems are here too. You can earn the other gems by competing in gem cups. You race in 4 racetracks per session, and whoever gets the most points at the end of it all wins the overall cup. By winning the gems, you also unlock new characters to play as in arcade mode, including the bosses from earlier. There's also 2 additional racetracks to unlock as well. Overall, there's a lot of replay value after defeating Oxide, and while you technically don't have to fully 100% Adventure Mode, but it does give you some nice rewards when doing so. Other than Adventure Mode, you have time trials to get the fastest time possible in each track. If you successfully complete the time trials, you unlock End Trophy. And then you have Battle Mode, which is pretty much multiplayer in a fight to blast your opponent to get the most points. Now, as much positives I've mentioned throughout the video have been features I love, but my favourite highlight in CTR is the soundtrack. Each beat, each instrument, and each tone fits very well in every racetrack. This is one of the few games that I'll be happy to listen to the OST while I'm busy doing some housework or writing some scripts. It's such a pleasure to the eardrum, and it's difficult to decide on which music piece is my all-time favourite. That might just give me an idea for a future video. Crash Team Racing to me is one of the best video games out there. If I really had to take a deep dive into CTR and find at least one thing wrong with the game, it's probably the fact that Nitrous Oxide is not a playable character, which makes sense due to his hovercraft being too much to handle for the PlayStation 1's hardware. But that's not an issue for me nowadays. Replaying this game, I still get that good old nostalgia feeling as I boot the game up, choose a race, and begin to play. The gameplay is great, the soundtrack is great, the racetrack design is great, pretty much everything about CTR screams great to me. If you haven't played the PlayStation 1 version of Crash Team Racing, then you are missing out. Although you can definitely recapture the essence of CTR through Nitro Field if you don't have the PlayStation 1 edition. It's basically the same game except for better graphics and the added addition of Crash Nitro Kart. But in order to look ahead towards the future, we first have to acknowledge and appreciate the past. And Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation 1 should get all the awards and credit that it deserves.
After the successful release of Crash Team Racing... Man, I love my new microphone. Naughty Dog had lost the rights to make Crash Bandicoot games, and many fans were sad and disappointed that Naughty Dog will no longer be making Crash Bandicoot games. But when you think about it, it was probably for the best. You see, with Naughty Dog not making Crash Bandicoot games anymore, they can now focus on other video games that they would like to make. And over the years, they've gone on to make some outstanding titles, such as Jak and Daxter, and the Uncharted series. But what does this mean for the Crash Bandicoot series? Well, 1 year passes, and Universal Interactive Studios needs to find someone to develop the next Crash game. Eurocon stepped up and gave us Mario Party. Oh, sorry. I mean, Crash Bash. Some people have complained that Crash Bash is just a copy clone of Mario Party. While I can understand what they're talking about, I'm gonna have to disagree. Because much like Crash Team Racing being inspired by Mario Kart, I like to believe that Crash Bash was inspired by Mario Party. Yes, the concept is roughly the same, but the layout style is completely different compared to Mario Party. The story begins with Aku Aku and Uka Uka arguing with each other on who is superior, good or evil. Uka Uka suggested they should fight each other, but Aku Aku says that the ancient gods will not allow it. That's interesting, because this is the only time that they brought up the ancient gods, and it's never mentioned in later installments. And also, it doesn't make sense why the ancient gods won't allow them to fight, because they technically did back at Crash 3. So they both agree that they will make up their own teams. Aku Aku notices that Uka Uka has too many players and challenges his confidence by making the teams fair. Uka Uka agrees, and Aku Aku selects Tiny Tiger and Dingodile. And whichever team collects the most trophies wins. And that's basically your story covered. I don't mind the intro, it's straight to the point and it's easy to follow. However, the story does feel underwhelming at times, and while it's cool to see Tiny Tiger and Dingodile in Crash's team, but as a creative point of view, it doesn't really make that much sense. Because remember, Tiger wanted to kill Crash with his pitchfork, and Dingodile wanted to make toast. Maybe you could have had Embryo joining Crash's team, cause after all, he did help them defeat Cortex back at Crash Bandicoot 2. Over at the main menu, and you can see Crash doing the chicken dance? What the fuck? Much like Crash Team Racing, Crash Bash offers adventure mode. Depending on which character you decide to play as, will determine the ending. If you play as the good guys, you get the good ending. But if you play as the bad guys, you'll get the evil ending. You have 8 characters to play as: Crash, Coco, Tiny Tiger, Dingo Doll, Cortex, Embryo, Koala Con, and who the fuck is this? Rillaroo? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Eurocon wanted Donkey Kong, but they couldn't get the rights to the character. So instead, they just made a terrible version of Donkey Kong in Rillaroo. You could have had Ripperoo, Pinstripe, and Trophy, or even Engine, but you had to go with this piece of shit? What's really interesting is this is Rillaroo's first and last time in a Crash Bandicoot game, which makes him the most forgettable character in the Crash Bandicoot series. In Adventure Mode, there's 4 levels to compete in, and once you collect all 4 trophies, you'll be able to fight a boss. The bosses in this game includes Papu Papu, the Baramator, the Komodo Brothers, and a final boss being Nitrous Oxide. The gameplay structure is seeing the player playing 7 different types of party games. In each of the 7 types of party games, there are 4 levels. Each of the levels does play the same, but they all have different twists to make each level more fresher. The first level you come across in Adventure Mode is called Crash Bowl. The objective in this game is to hit the balls into your opponent's goal. The last man standing wins the game. There's other levels such as Polar Panic, where the only way to win is to knock off the opponent and be the sole survivor, and Pogo Painter. You hit the squares into colors and you hit the crates into points, and the highest score wins the game. Each character has their pros and cons to each game, so who you play as is important. Overall, most of the games are pretty fun to play. The designs of each level looks nice and the controls feel tight. But there is a huge problem that this game has. You have to win 3 times to get the trophy. 3 fucking times. Which makes the experience so repetitive. Grinding through each level just to win 3 times is absolute torture. You would hope that the level would end, but it just drags on, and the gameplay turns from pretty fun to pretty annoying. If it was a best out of 3, or you win at least once, then it would have been fine. When it comes to the difficulty in Crash Bash, this game is pretty hard. I'll go as far to say that Crash Bash is one of the hardest games I ever played when I was a kid. And adding in the winning 3 times to get a trophy, it does play an unfair advantage. Even playing multiplayer, it can still be irritating at times because of the goddamn difficulty. And because I failed so many times at this game as a kid, I frickin' broke my controller, yelled at the television, and kicked the VHS video player. Oh, I miss the good old days. And this may come as a surprise to you, but get this. Out of all the games I've played and completed throughout my gaming experience, I have never beaten Crash Bash's Adventure Mode. I know, right? I'm just as shocked as you are. I've gained so much knowledge and skills during my video game journey, and yet, somehow, I still can't complete this game. Well, I guess you can't master at every video game, can you? Anyway, let's move on. If there is something that I really like about Crash Bash, is the soundtrack. It is generally because most of the soundtrack in Crash Bash is similar to the old Crash Bandicoot songs back in the day, but it sounds like an original song. It just sounds good. Outside of Adventure Mode, you can play in battle modes and participate in tournaments. And because this game is a party game, you get to play with your friends in multiplayer, even in adventure mode. I'll admit that playing this game solo can be boring, but playing it with your friends, it becomes a lot of fun. Overall, I can't really say anything too much about this game, because at the end of the day, it's just your average and typical party game. It's just one of those games where you can set up and play with your friends or your family all night long, and you'll have a lot of fun. I do like the level designs of each party game, the soundtrack sounds nice, and the story is simple that it doesn't become confusing. But however, with this game having a high difficulty and an unfair winning system, it's no wonder why this game isn't memorable. Because with the repetitive style that this game offers, it can get old pretty fast. Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time has been officially released on consoles, and it is now known as the 4th game in the series in terms of the main storyline. I am definitely looking forward to talking about this game down the line and seeing how a brand new Crash game can hold up to the modern era. Whenever there could be a success or a flop, time will indeed tell. But before we check out Crash 4, let's go back in time to the original Crash 4. You know which one I'm talking about, Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex. A game that had a lot of momentum moving forward with a lot of hype and speculations, but somehow divided many fans of the Crash Bandicoot series. Before developing a bunch of LEGO games, Traveller's Tales were the ones behind this game. While they have made games like Finding Nemo, Sonic R, and A Bug's Life, but they also made a pretty good game in Toy Story 2. And now the group has been given the task of creating the first Crash Bandicoot game on PlayStation 2. And today, I'm gonna play through this game and find out exactly why this game has a divided fanbase. I have made a video on this topic years ago, but looking back, it is pretty old and somewhat outdated. And this time around, with the release of Crash 4 It's About Time, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to go back to this game and see if my opinions has altered. So with that said, let's begin. The game begins with this somewhat meanwhile at the Legion of Doom segment. We kick things off with Uka Uka having a meeting with all the villains from Crash 3. He's furious over the track record for spreading evil has been going down the drain, all thanks to Crash. Uka Uka demands that Crash Bandicoot must be eliminated at all cost. Cortex comes forward and admits that he's been working on a genetically enhanced super weapon of unbelievable strength who goes by the name of Crunch. But however, Cortex is missing a power source to wake him up. Uka Uka suggests the elementals, 4 separate rebel masks with the element powers of earth, water, fire, and air. They caused havoc many years ago and were locked up for their actions. With the elementals awakened, they can bring their secret weapon to life and destroy Crash forever. And we see that take place on Earth when certain disasters occur. Aku Aku goes off to confront his evil twin brother until he was surprised by the elementals. Aku Aku returns to Crash and Coco and he lets them know about the situation. The only way to lock the elementals back up is to gather power crystals, and how did I not see this coming? So Crash, Coco, and Aku Aku work together to stop Cortex's plans once more and defeat the elementals and their secret weapon Crunch. I do have some issues with the intro. Nothing really happens a lot with this opening scene. It's just all the bad guys sitting down and talking. They don't get up from their chair or perform some wacky animations. That also goes for the later portions on the part where Aku Aku talks while Crash and Coco are just doing nothing and listening. It just feels like laziness is written all over. I will say though that I am interested in the story plot. Cortex and Uka Uka are going all in by bringing 4 of the most dangerous masks in the elementals, and Cortex creating his secret weapon with one purpose, to annihilate Crash. So now all the intro stuff has been covered, let's talk about the game itself. So call this a parody of Cat Icarus or Valve for XD or whoever you want to call it, but I will be going through this game level by level. I know it's probably not the best way to tackle this game, but Wrath of Cortex is such a different game comparing to the previous title, and in order to understand why that's the case, it feels like to me I have to go through and talk about this game from start to finish. So I hope everyone's okay with that, and let's begin with level 1. Level 1 is Arctic Antics. It's kind of weird to have a snow level in the beginning stage, but honestly, I'm not going to complain about that. While I'm going through levels, I'll also talk about the gameplay features. The gameplay aspects are exactly what you would expect. Warp into a level, collect a power crystal, gems, and along with hitting every box you see, and leave. You have your standard spin attack, jumping, crawling, belly flop, and slide jump. The movement speed does seem a little bit slower to me, but overall, it's your typical Crash Bandicoot game. It looks, feels, and plays like Crash, and it's demonstrated during the first level. It's a nice, easy level to get used to the controls of this game, and I really enjoyed Arctic Antics. So yeah, I'm already hooked, and it'll be interesting to see how much challenge the platforming can get during level 2. Okay, I wasn't expecting a vehicle level, but Crash 3 did have a handful of them, so I guess it's fine. Tornado Alley sees you in a plane and you have to shoot down the floating objects that are causing tornadoes. The plane moves very slowly and it's an extremely easy level as enemies don't try to hurt you that much. Overall, not that great or impressive. Bamboozled is up next and it features you inside a bowl. And honestly, it sounds pretty fun because of how much control you have during these bowl stages. I actually like the levels that include the bowl. The controls are good and you can obtain so much speed. Kinda wish it was a platforming level, but I'm okay with this. Wizards and Lizards is next and we're back into a platform level. It starts you off as you would imagine, then you have a dragon chasing you and you have to run away. While I'm here, I'll talk about the soundtrack. The music here in Wrath of Cortex is extremely underrated to me. There are some really good tracks here and this particular level is one of them. This game also features death routes and the death routes are pretty cheap. It's mostly because of how many nitros there are. Instead of interesting tough platform phases, you have nitro crates placed everywhere. It doesn't feel challenging and rewarding at the same time, but other than that, level 4 is a good level. Next up is Compactor Reactor. It starts up in a minecart and I'm beginning to question the amount of vehicle levels already. In 5 levels we already have 3 of them containing some sort of transportation. It only lasts for around 90 seconds, but it just feels out of place, especially when you exit the minecart and you begin the platforming segments. The second portion of the level is pretty good, however I have noticed that the enemy attacks only focuses on one spot and doesn't technically aim at Crash, which is something you'll see during the entire game. But other than that, level 5 is decent and it would have been better off without the minecart. So you know how it goes, grab 5 power crystals and you get to fight a boss. The idea of the bosses in Wrath of Cortex are lazy in my opinion, as the next 4 bosses is just crunch with a different type of mask. Yeah, the gameplay style is different, but there's not much creativity with variety of creatures to face. I think it would have been a lot better to have the bosses from Crash 3 here, teaming up with one of the elemental masks instead of what you're about to see later on in this video. The first boss is Crunch along with the earth mask known as Rocco. You get to go inside the bowl once again and the objective is to hit the rocks to change it to your color. Do this 3 times and you'll win. If you hit the rocks while their color is orange, you will have to sacrifice some of your health. It's fine overall, but the boss fight can drag on for way too long, so it only depends on luck. So for each boss you beat, you get special upgrades. The upgrades are the same as Crash 3 with the exception of one, and that'll be put into use throughout level 6 being Jungle Rumble. And that new special ability is, I kid you not, being able to tiptoe on nitro crates. And that is definitely one of the most unnecessary power-ups for Crash in a video game, as it's pretty much a gimmick rather than an upgrade. But anyways, the level is alright, bits of the camera angle can be off at times though. Later on you'll see yourself in a jeep and you have to drive away from the rhinos. It's a pretty nice chase section. And towards the end, I faced a harsh reality check when I missed one box. Next up is an underwater level called Seashell Shenanigans. I wasn't a big fan of the underwater levels in Crash 3 and I'm not a fan of it here. The swimming controls are not that tight, enemies and objects can come out of nowhere which could result in dying, and the worst of them all, the submarine. It's slow and turning around takes longer than expected. Overall, I did not enjoy this level. Next up is Banzai Bonsai. This is the first time we play as Coco in terms of platforming, however her playstyle is a downgrade version of Crash and she doesn't get the power-ups. But regardless, I really enjoyed this level. The platforming can be a bit tricky if you're not too careful and the music here is catchy. It's another good Crash Bandicoot level, even though Crash Bandicoot is nowhere to be seen. Next level is That Sinking Feeling, and who thought that this was a good idea for a level? Seriously, first we had Tornado Alley when you have to stop the tornadoes, but now we're in a different type of plane trying to shoot the ships. And what's weird is that the shooting in this level requires you to lock onto a ship, then you can fire. This to me is the worst level in the Wrath of Cortex. Don't at me, I found it to be unbearable and I'll just move on from here. Next level is H2 Oh No. We start off in the submarine. God damn it, are you kidding me? Aw, look at the little fishy, he's so... Oh, fair enough then. Don't worry, it only lasts for a couple of minutes, then we go back to some platforming. And this segment here was really good. The water is electrified and you have to use the unbreakable boxes to get to the other side, resulting into some challenging moments. If only this game can use this kind of creative idea for other parts instead of adding nitro crates everywhere. The second boss fight is Crunch, along with the water elemental mask named Wawa. They throw these dangerous hazards you have to avoid by either jumping or crouching. Hit him 3 times and you'll win. The boss fight is nothing too special. Once you understand the pattern, it can be an easy breeze. Level 11 is the Gauntlet, another level I really enjoyed. As by its name, you have to go through a gauntlet of bits and pieces that can hurt Crash. It's a fun level that involves you to pay attention to your surroundings or you may end up getting slashed. Another fun level just so happens to be the next one, Tsunami. You once again play as Coco and the first half seems like an easy breeze until you jump onto a scooter trying to ride away from the tsunami itself. I still to this day question how can Coco use a scooter to escape from a tidal wave, but other than that, it's another good platforming level. The next level is Smokey and the Bandicoot. It's basically a racing level much like the motorbike levels in Crash 3. It's fine, not the worst level I've played, but still not enjoyable to me. I'm not a huge fan of the controls as steering is a bit off to me, and you don't have as much space to move past your opponents. Speaking of controls, I might as well talk about Crash's movements. The way how you control Crash is okay, but I have noticed throughout my playthrough is that Crash moves slower than the PS1 trilogy. It's mostly due to the way how you slide. Next up is Eskimo Roll, which is another bowl level, and I gotta say, I once again enjoyed this level. You try to avoid the water holes, you have stages where you have to use some moving platforms to get to the next part, and it features one of my favorite music in this game, in my opinion. However, there is one thing I witnessed and it really got me miserable when I saw it. The side bosses from Crash 3, including Tiny Tiger, my boy Dingo Doll, and then Trophy, are being treated than nothing more than obstacles. It's really sad how we went from cool bosses to lifeless creatures acting like hurdles to get past and not the good kind. Next up is Fahrenheit's Frenzy. You begin in a helicopter pack similar to the jetpack in Crash 2. It's fine, but very slow. And once that's over and done with, you get rewarded with more platforming stages. The one part I really enjoyed was the 2D sections and you see Crash as a skeleton. But I also find it weird that the enemies aren't turned into skeletons in the 2D bits. But that's just a nitpick. Speaking of enemies, there's not a whole lot of different variety of foes to meet as it's just the same ones copied and pasted from start to finish. All in all, I enjoyed this particular level. The third boss fight is Crunch, along with the fire elemental mask, Pyro. It's honestly pretty straightforward. You run away, dodge his attacks, jump into a machine, and use water to attack him. It's really nothing too special here, just simple as it can get. It's probably overall my least favorite boss fight here as it is nothing too unique about it. Next up is Avalanche, another Coco level and another level I enjoyed, mainly because of the music. It's really catchy and nice to listen to. Later on in the level, you then hop onto a snowboard while escaping from the avalanche while trying to get past between the flags. It's an okay level to me. Next up is Droid Void. It seems to be going alright, and then you get introduced to the monkey bar segments. It is very slow to move around and it gets old very quickly, especially when you realize that the enemies move faster than Crash himself. And then later on, we get inside a mechanical suit that reminds me of Jak 2. I honestly don't understand why this was necessary. The aiming feels off and the jumping is weird. I'm not a huge fan of these levels and maybe cut out the mech suit and the monkey bars and I'll probably would have had a different opinion. Next up is Crash Terranoids, and it's once again another unnecessary vehicle level like that sinking feeling. It's up to this point where it occurs to me that the Wrath of Cortex has too much levels that contains vehicles. At this point, it's hard to tell if this game really is a 3D platformer. Crash 2 did have a great example of bringing in some vehicle levels, but at the same time doesn't go overboard with it and stays true to its genre. But in the Wrath of Cortex, and particularly this level, demonstrates how little Traveler's Tales creativity was. As for the level itself, it's what you would expect. Use your vehicle to destroy all the targets and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Next up is Coral Canyon. It's honestly the same as She-Cell shenanigans, so there's not much to say about it. I guess I can use this time to talk about the level designs. Like I've said before, this game has too much vehicles, but I will say that some levels are pretty nice. I like the levels that contain the Ball Spear, and the first level was a cool introduction to the Wrath of Cortex. Even though most levels' idea of hazards is placing nitro crates everywhere you see, the level designs are not the worst, but they definitely could have been a lot more better. Next up is Wuthering Heights. It starts off okay until the monkey bars just show up out of nowhere, but other than that, the level is simple, nothing too interesting. The next boss fight is Crunch along with the Air Elemental Mask, Lolo. It's my favorite boss in this game. You'll see controlling the plane and you have to shoot down Crunch while avoiding his attacks. You do see a pattern, but then later on he changes it up to throw off the player and it can be pretty challenging. If you take your time and watch out for his attacks, you'll eventually win. The boss fight is honestly a good one, and that's saying a lot because of what I've seen during my time with the Wrath of Cortex. So now we're up to the final 5 levels. Let's see if Traveler's Tales can knock it out of the park with Crash and Burn. I do like this lava level. You avoid the lava, platform your way to the end, and there's a nice 2D section as well. While I'm here, I'll mention the loading times for the Wrath of Cortex, so depending on what version and system you have, will determine how long this game will take to load up. If you have the Xbox and the GameCube version, of course it will load up much more quickly. But I unfortunately have the first version of the PlayStation 2, so I will have to wait a while for the game to load up. It's not that bad looking back, and it's probably because I'm used to seeing the modern games taking their time to load up. But I definitely was impatient back in the day, and it didn't help out when I yelled at my TV begging for it to load. Next up is Gold Rush, and it starts off alright, then you get to the monkey bar segments again. Okay, can this get any worse than that? Okay, I spoke too soon. I noticed as well that when you get Aku Aku's invincibility, that iconic music that plays from the original trilogy doesn't appear in this game. And plus, what makes it odd is that you don't move faster when you get it. But other than that, this level is fine, but not great. The next level is Medieval Madness, and is the third boss stage in the game. It's honestly one of my favorite levels in this game. It's the same principles as before, but towards the end, you have a maze to go through. It still sucks that the bosses from Crash 3 are lifeless obstacles, but despite that, this level is a damn good bowl level. Level 24 is Crate Poles of Fire. Hope everyone likes monkey bars! It's an okay level that features a chase scene and a nice soundtrack to accompany this level. I enjoyed it, not much else to say. The last level is Cortex Vortex. No vehicle stages and no bullshit mechanics. It's just you up against some platforming with everything you have learned along your journey. It's a fun, challenging level that requires focus and using your special upgrades to get to the finishing line. I love this level overall. So now this brings us to the final boss. The last boss fight is a mixture of Cortex, Uka Uka, Crunch, and all 4 of the elemental masks. It's a pretty interesting boss battle. Your objective is to avoid every attack from the elementals, hit Crunch with your bazooka, and making Crunch hit Cortex because it's now revealed that Crunch has been brainwashed by Cortex this whole time. I like this final boss as it does keep you engaged and focused. So once you win, you'll get a cutscene about Cortex failing, but Uka Uka suggests while they may have the power crystals, but they don't have the relics. And yeah, I'm not going to attempt to 100% this game, and plus there's a reason why YouTube exists, so you can check out the secret ending for yourself. So that's pretty much Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex, and I think the main reason why this game doesn't get the same love and treatment like the other previous Crash Bandicoot games on PS1 is because, in my opinion, The Wrath of Cortex fails to be its own identity. This game doesn't try anything new and unique to improve the formula of 3D platforming. Wrath of Cortex is pretty much Crash 3 at the end of the day, but with more vehicle levels to take part in. And sure, there's bits and pieces from Crash 1 and 2, but it's mostly just copied and paste. And I think this is why Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time succeeded, because that game has an identity. If you have played this game or seen gameplay footage, you can tell that they are trying something new, different, and fresh to the series, but at the same time, staying true to what made the Crash Bandicoot game successful in the first place. So as for the Wrath of Cortex itself, it's not a terrible video game by any means. I do enjoy some set pieces in the levels and the soundtrack sounds criminally underrated, but I feel like every time I witness a good part, there's always a vehicle stage or some pointless gameplay style like the monkey boss for example, are lurking around the corner waiting for me to rip my hair out. For recommending this game, it only depends if you're open to the idea that Wrath of Cortex will contain a bunch of vehicle levels. But other than that, I can't give out a reason why you should play this game, because with the other Crash Bandicoot games out there to play like the Insane Trilogy, Nitro Fuel, Twinsanity, and the original 4 Crash games on PlayStation 1, Wrath of Cortex can be skippable and you wouldn't miss anything. It's a shame though, because this game had a lot of potential to be something good if it wasn't for the rushed development process. Regardless, Wrath of Cortex is nothing special to get invested in. Before we actually get started on the Crash Nitro Kart review, there is something I should mention. I did watch my old review of Crash Nitro Kart and oh boy, I was really harsh on that one. Then again, you'll have to understand where I was coming from at the time. From playing the game back as a kid to my teenage days growing up, I absolutely hated this game to oblivion. It wasn't a good game to me because everything just felt off and bizarre. And since I haven't played this game for a very long time, let's see if my opinion has changed or if it remains the same. I'll probably go on to add that I won't be talking about what happens in the beginning of the story, mainly because I've already mentioned it before in my old review, and it'll be a waste of time in my opinion. And plus, you already know the plot anyway, since I'm assuming most of you guys and gals are fans of Crash Bandicoot. But what I will talk about is what I think about the story, and it's simple, it gets straight to the point because the main focus is mostly towards the gameplay than the actual plot, and the beginning portions is somewhat similar to Crash Team Racing's story, but with an invasion. And the difference is, Oxide wanted to race against the best of the best, and you don't have to be forced to compete, while Emperor Velo threatens to destroy Earth unless if the gang are forced to race in the Galaxy circuit. In Adventure Mode, instead of choosing an individual racer, you can select a team, either Team Bandicoot that features Crash, Coco and Crunch, or Team Cortex that features Cortex, Engine and Tiny Tiger. Before you begin a race, you have the option to select what teammate to choose, and each one is different gameplay wise. Characters like Tiny and Crunch will have not great speed but good turning, while Engine and Coco will have great speed but not good turning. Crash and Cortex are an all-rounder, which makes them the better option to select, but you do you. For this playthrough, I decided to try out Team Cortex. And here is where my first complaint comes into play.
Wow, shocking. That didn't take long at all.
So in Nitro Kart, there's a total of 4 teams you can play. So why can't we play as Team Oxide and Team Trance in Adventure Mode? If you ask me, bringing that option in could deliver even more storytelling. And Trance wants to mind control everyone to reach to the top, and Oxide can race for redemption to be the fastest racer in the galaxy once again, or something along those lines. I just feel it's a wasted opportunity to not include it in the story. And also, when it comes to choosing what team to play as, they don't talk with each other at all during cutscenes. If anything, you'll see the same cutscenes as before, but instead of Team Bandicoot interactions with the bosses and Velo, you have Team Cortex instead with different dialogue. And again, this does waste an opportunity for different teams to interact with one another. I would have liked to have seen Cortex being angry at Crash once again, or Crunch and Tiny having a bench pressing competition or something like that, just to develop character instead of not having to hear the same lines as before. But as far as the graphics go, it does look really good. I love the animations as it's smooth and it's pretty colourful. As I've stated, for me, I'm all about the gameplay rather than the graphics, but at least I can say it's definitely one of the best good looking Crash games on the PlayStation 2 console. Before checking out the hub world, we first have to sit through Uka Uka's speech animation, and man, it has not aged well at all.
You will have to race in order to win the Galaxy Circuit ocean and save Earth for us to conquer!
Oh my, what a beautiful day it is today. A lovely time to go to the beach. I might buy some fish and chips while I'm at it. Exploring around the hub world here is pretty basic, although when you want to check out the next area, you have to be teleported and witness a loading screen, which I do think it's a downgrade compared to CTR on how you can just head to the next area without any loading screens at all. I'll mention here that I unfortunately don't have footage and I can't record the PlayStation 1 edition at this stage, but if I do mention CTR for the PS1, I'll let you know. But anyway, it's time to talk about the gameplay side of things. And the first thing that I probably should mention it's probably going to be the controls. Controls can be a bit complicated to talk about sometimes. Say if I'm playing a platform game or an open world game, at times I can forgive a game having weird controls depending on what kind of game it is. But for a racing genre, the controls in a racing game is the top priority in any racing game. It is literally a make or break, and if it fails, then there's a good % chance that the entire game will suffer. I mentioned in my old review that the controls for handling your kart in Nitro Kart is slippery. Well, as far as future me is concerned, the controls are meh. They're pretty meh to me. I will admit, it's not the tightest controls in a racing game, but it's not the worst and it's not the end of the world. I can move my kart around and can use my power slide to the direction I want, to an extent that is. But however, when you compare the controls to Crash Team Racing on the PlayStation 1, the control handling in Nitro Kart is laughable. And not the good kind of laughter, the kind I'm talking about is...
The fuck is that?
Crash Team Racing, on the PlayStation 1 that is, has set the bar very high for future competitors. When it comes to Crash Nitro Kart, Vicarious Visions was always going to struggle with trying to match that same style that CTR had. And they made a decent effort here, I'll give them credit, but there was no way they were going to surpass Crash Team Racing's controls, not by a long shot. I feel that the faster you go, the trickier it can be when trying to power slide a tough corner or to get through a shortcut. And as for the speed and momentum, every time I do end up bumping on the sides, it can take a while to get that speed back. And for a racing game, that really does blow. I will admit, I did get distracted just by looking at the character icons. Engine looks like he's trying to figure out what 2 plus 2 is, Zam is having an intense staring contest with you, and I think Dingo Doll just had an orgasm. Oh yeah, Dingo Doll is in this game. Nope, stop, cut the music. That was a terrible joke to do back in the day, and we're definitely not going to do that. Fuck that shit. The racetracks in Nitro Kart, while a handful of them do take certain elements from Crash Team Racing, the look and design of them are actually pretty okay. You have a giant clock in Out of Time and you can drive around it. Thunderstruck has this greenish sky that always rains. Wait, is greenish even a word? Oh yeah, it is a word. But that's only just naming a few. The number of racetracks here are only 13 of them, so it is smaller than CTR's, but I'm not that fussed over it. There's even new weapons when you break a box, like ice shards, static orbs, and tornado for example. And also, in the racetrack, you have an anti-gravity system that allows you to drive upwards, to the sides, and even upside down. An idea that Mario Kart 8 took many years later. I just thought I included that in, otherwise someone will probably say it in the comment section. I can see the idea and where they were coming from, but I'm not a huge fan of them. Every time I enter in those sections, I seem to lose my momentum when driving. And that could be depending on how narrow the track is or how many loops or turns there are. I like to believe that with losing the momentum along those areas, that's why they fix it up in Nitro Fueled by removing the anti-gravity system entirely and replacing it with a simple track layout. Overall, I do find myself liking some of the racetracks here, but most of that is mainly due to having a similar design back over in CTR. But there was this one weird thing they did added in Nitro Kart, and that new feature is the team meter.
When you race along with your teammate, your meter bar will start to fill up. The closer you are, the faster it'll refill, and once it's full and activated, random weapons will appear and you can use them, sending a barrage of destruction to your opponents for a limited amount of time. I don't like this, and I honestly try to ignore it if possible. It can be very distracting for me, and it does end up being useless anyway since I'm far ahead of the competition. I think Nitro Kart would have been better off without this feature. The music, while not exactly memorable, but it does sound pretty catchy once hearing it. Not the best, but it could be a lot worse. There's also other game modes to play and choose from, like time trials to beat end trophies time. You can also race against your own time as well. You can compete in battle modes against your mates in multiplayer, and in adventure mode, you can do the relic challenges where you complete 3 laps in a race in a time limit, and the token challenges to collect the tokens C, N, and K while finishing in first place. Yeah, good luck with that. And then you have the bosses, and each one does have a unique personality. Unfortunately though, I find myself not being invested in these boss characters because they don't have enough time to be fully established. They have one small cutscene before the race, you race against them, and another small cutscene afterwards, and that's it. Yeah, Crash Team Racing on the PlayStation 1 had the same treatment with their bosses, but those characters have already been established in past Crash games, therefore we already know their character traits. In Nitro Kart, these are brand new characters, and I wish they had a bit more time so I can fully get myself into them. But what sucks the most about it is they are not playable characters in the game at all. It's just super weird, and it makes me think these characters offer no purpose to the entire game. If the Game Boy Advance version has these characters playable, but not the PlayStation 2 version, then something is completely wrong. And that was Crash Nitro Kart. The way I see it, at the end of the day, it's just Crash Team Racing 2.0, but without the tight controls and feeling like a downgrade. Visually, it looks really good, and I was stunned to how nice it was to view it, but however, as mentioned earlier, gameplay is what I'm all about, and there are quite a few issues I have with it, like the anti-gravity system, the T-nut mechanic, and of course, the controls.
Well, this is, interesting. In all my years of making videos, this is the first time where I don't even know where to start. Especially for a game like Crash Twinsanity. Well, I suppose I should just take it from the top.
Crash Twinsanity was a video game I played a lot back in the day. And I mean a lot. As I was getting fully invested into the PlayStation 2 console, I spent a lot of time playing Tekken 5, The Simpsons Hit and Run, and of course, Crash Twinsanity. A lot of hours were put into that game instead of studying and learning how to do math.
1 + 1 = 2.
Very good, buddy! Here's a snack!
Oh, fuck yeah, I love snacks!
Maybe the reason why I feel like this now is because I've been overexposed to this game to a point where I don't even know if I love this game or absolutely despise it. Because, let's be real, as much enjoyment I have with Twinsanity and have so many childhood memories with this game, I can't ignore it anymore. This game feels incomplete and a mess at times. I'm not trying to be controversial or anything like that. I honestly never thought I would reach that conclusion myself, but in order to understand my point of view, let's talk about some Crash Twinsanity. Like I said in my Nitro Kart re-review, link in description, I won't be discussing what happens in the beginning portions of the story, but I can tell you what I think about it. And yeah, I like the story. It's definitely a lot more interesting in comparison to other Crash games on the PlayStation 2. Cortex realizes there's a bigger threat with the evil twins, which they somehow remind me of Pinky and the Brain, and Cortex and Crash put aside their differences for the greater good. You don't often see that type of storytelling in video games where the protagonist and the main villain join forces.
Hey, there's a top 10 video for ya. You do witness some side stories like with Engine and Trophy and Embryo for example, as they try to get some treasure, although that doesn't translate very well to the player, you'll understand why later on. But when first starting to move Crash Bandicoot, you'll come to notice that you don't get spawned in a warp room and choose what level to participate in. Instead, you can fully explore a much open area with platforms, gems, and nice environments. It's still linear as it all leads to the one destination, but I definitely like this idea of checking out a bigger area. Reason being is because I was so used to seeing a level selection in a hub world with Crash Bandicoot, and I have this feeling that if they did it again here, then it would have been stale in my opinion. Now, if you notice, there's a line that moves around every time I head forward. That's just my PlayStation 2 emulator playing games with me and mucking around, so I hope it doesn't get too distracting for you. And everything does seem to be going well. Oh, until you get up to this section.
Call me thrice, and I shall grant you special powers.
The designs of each area you visit are very nice, and some of them are creative too. From Insanity Island, the Iceberg Lab, Academy of Evil, and Twin Sanity Island. They're nicely laid out, colourful to look at, and looks presentable. But I do feel like Twin Sanity Island looks a bit empty and somewhat unfinished, but it became alright when heading inside the Evil Twins lair and partaking in some puzzles. The controls when moving Crash Bandicoot around are good. It's not as tight as the original trilogy because it can be floaty at times, but I don't mind the controls in Twin Sanity. The gameplay here can be described as, well, interesting once again. Half of the gameplay sees you controlling Crash, jumping around, spin attacking boxes and enemies, that sort of thing. And the second half is about teamwork as well as playing as Cortex and a new character named Nina. Let's talk about teamwork. Crash and Cortex help each other out to get to the next section. And what I mean by that is literally fighting each other as you roll down. The different types of teamwork abilities you can do with Cortex is rolling down while they beat each other up and guide them without getting seriously damaged. You can use Cortex to spin attack, slam attack, and can even throw him to the other side of the area to grab gems or turn switches. I don't think he's supposed to be standing from my point of view. There's a 2D section where you have to help Cortex to reach to the other section without getting hurt. You can ride Cortex like a surfboard to reach to the bottom of the hill. And by how things are looking, I feel sorry for Cortex's future kids. And finally, when Cortex gets stuck in a bowl, you have to push him along to the pipes to unlock platforms to keep the plot moving forward. If that sounds like a lot to you, then you're probably right, but I'm not even finished with the gameplay. Not even close. Later on in the game, you'll switch over to Cortex, and this is considered as the first time you play as him in a 3D environment, without anything to do with racing and party games. Unfortunately, playing as Cortex can feel underwhelming as all he does is use his blaster to shoot down enemies. He's not as agile as Crash, so for me, it felt like the pacing slowed down for me. I do like when he loses all of his ammo, he just puts his arm in the air and runs like hell. And then you have Nina as a playable character as well. Think of her similar to Batman on how you use your grapple hook to ascend to the top of the building. She can also use her robotic hands to hit enemies and extend her arms to hit bells. Nina's gameplay section is fine. I wish Nina would have more gameplay time, but it is what it is. And that's the normal thing with Twin Sanity. Everything comes and goes, so it's just one of those games where you have to get used to the constant gameplay changes. Overall, the gameplay can seem random as it goes from different gameplay mechanics to another and another in a span of 5 minutes, but I do enjoy some of the gameplay elements here like the snowboarding and moving Cortex around, even if they do reuse it towards the third act. But like my comment earlier, I felt that if they just stuck to the traditional method, it would have been stale at this point. You probably have noticed the first thing when it comes to Cortex, and that is what is up with his voice. Crash Twin Sanity also marks the first time we get to hear Lex Lane instead of Clancy Brown. I'm not going to pick between the two on which one was better because they both sound great.
Clancy was dark, mysterious, and also had some nice charm, while Lex offered more vocal range to the character, allowing him to have a bigger reaction to situations.
Throw me over there. Trust me. We're pals, right?
So I would go on to add that Cortex and the writing are one of the biggest strengths in Twinsanity. This game is just absolutely hilarious, breaking the fourth wall, delivering iconic one-liners, and even going on as to make fun of the Wrath of Cortex.
The check bounced. Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish?
And even replaying this game, I still find myself laughing out loud. Hell, I even laughed at a fart joke of all things. Me, a 25-year-old male, is chuckling over a fart gag.
How could things get any worse?
And still, with the humor this game presents, it never feels boring for me. Even if it does start to get tiresome, Twinsanity always finds a way to make me smile. And another talking point to mention is the soundtrack. And when it comes to the soundtrack, the music can be pretty divided. It's another interesting topic to discuss when mentioning Crash Twinsanity's music. The entire OST's instruments are a cappella, being performed by Spiralmouth. And with this kind of music, you're either going to love it for having a nice beat and an atmospheric feel to the entire experience, or you're gonna hate it because it's weird, repetitive, and sounds like a bunch of random farts. I can understand both parties' point of view, so I suppose it depends on your taste of what kind of music you enjoy. I'm one of those people who absolutely loves the soundtrack here. To me, it just sounds awesome. Can actually taste a bit of hair in my mouth. Should probably get a haircut soon. Throughout each area, you can collect gems. There's 6 gems in every level, and collecting enough of them will unlock concept art and storyboards to witness. Sounds cool, but collecting the gems doesn't feel rewarding. If anything, I end up wasting a few of my life counters just to collect one gem. Twinsanity features a handful of bosses, and there's some cool varieties. You'll be facing Engine, the giant Tiki monster, Madame Amberline, and many more. Cortex, who is usually the final boss in a Crash game, ends up being the first boss, which is a nice different approach. However, most of the bosses have the same pattern of doing the exact same thing 3 times until you defeat the boss, which does feel repetitive. My favorite boss would have to be Dingodile, because even though you go through the same process every time you try again, and he doesn't change his style, at least with every hit you give to Dingodile, he does a different method, so his battle will seem unpredictable at first. So about this game as a whole, I have to mention one of its biggest weaknesses, and for me, it halts it from being a good video game.
Are you gonna talk about the glitches yet?
Yes, Invisible Guy, I'm gonna talk about the glitches just a bit later on.
Well, you better.
The game can be pretty short, with finishing the game around 3 to 4 hours depending on your playstyle, but that's not the reason why. If you have noticed, Crash Twinsanity is simply unfinished. I constantly got distracted or asking questions to myself from start to finish. Like Aku Aku I mentioned earlier, no matter how many masks you obtained, if you run into a nitro crate, you'll die instantly. This is something you'll never see in any other Crash game, and even if I do end up getting 3 Aku Aku masks, there's no upbeat music to make you feel invincible for a limited amount of time. When you die and go back to the previous checkpoint, the music just resets itself, which is something you don't really see in a Crash Bandicoot game, because the music in older Crash games, and even the newer ones too, does keep going. Also, hope you like unskippable cutscenes, because that's the normal thing this game presents. It's not that bad, but it will get annoying once seeing it again and again, like the Precursor Legacy on how you can't skip cutscenes at all. The Embryo and End Trophy intro before their boss battle, Embryo drinks a potion, but there was no sound effect during the transformation, making it a bit awkward to look at. It's also weird that they show up out of nowhere and disappear afterwards, making them feel like afterthoughts, which shouldn't be the case. Remember all the villains you see in the first act, like Tiny Tiger, Oxide, and Polar for whatever reason? Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing those characters because that's the last time you'll be seeing most of them in the entire game. This feels very clickbaity to me. You present all these potential storylines and what type of bosses you'll be facing, but then it just takes it away from me. Almost like taking candy from a baby. I mentioned Twinsanity Island looking empty, and yeah, it looks like this place just needs more environment or objects to make it stand out. But what's probably the worst out of the bunch is after leaving the academy and entering the ship, Crash stands around with nothing else to do. Sure, it's only 15 seconds, but it's a very painful time waster, and really noticeable. I'm sorry, but how did the developers not see this and said to themselves, oh, that doesn't look appealing, better get rid of it before we release the game?
Are you talking about the glitches now?
Okay, fine, I'll talk about it! And of course, you also have the weird glitches and bugs that can totally transform your gameplay into something either pretty funny or just downright annoying. Are you happy now, Invisible Guy?
Yeah!
And yet, the reason behind all of that is due to Traveller's Tales, Oxford Studios had a deadline for when the game will be released, and I'm sure they tried their best with given the time frame, but this is what they had towards the end.
But here's another kicker. Apparently, Crash Twinsanity was going to have even more features.
This is starting to take me back to Spyro and to the goddamn piece of frickin' shite Dragonfly on how that game was meant to have more levels and hub worlds. You could see the similarities between the two. Now, I'm sure we've all heard about them. Gonna Big Coco level was cut, as well as additional gameplay features and more dimensions to explore. There's a lot of discussions about this topic for years online, on how it could have made the game better or the possibility of different varieties. And yeah, I'll admit, I do ponder on that idea too, and even at times, I wonder if Twinsanity should get a remake with all the cut content, but at the same time, wouldn't that make it a completely new game? I mean, sure, it'll look like Crash Twinsanity, but it'll mostly be a new experience in that game. Crash Twinsanity 2.0, if you will. And even checking out the cut content that was supposed to be in the game, half of it would work, but the other half, I personally feel like it wouldn't work. I would imagine it could drag the gameplay down. I feel like when it comes to an actual critique of this game, I don't want to look at it at what it could have been, I'm looking at this game at what we currently have. And at the end of the day, this is the final product we have. And because of the constant cuts and changes within Twinsanity, I feel that the final product really did a lot of harm to itself. And that was Crash Twinsanity. This game reminds me of a fast food restaurant. I know it may not look clean, but I still keep coming back to it. And a few reasons why I come back to Twinsanity is the writing, the comedy, seeing Cortex, and the soundtrack. There are a couple of areas I wish could have been explored on, like improving the boss battles, and I would like to see more gameplay of Nina, but again, it does come back to its development. This is probably going to be up there as one of the biggest missed opportunities in the video gaming industry. So many ideas were on the table and so many were removed, and yet the only thing that suffered towards the end was the game itself. To me, what we have is an unfinished and somewhat broken product, and to quote Cortex and Twinsanity, they simply just ran out of time. So we're 2 down and 1 to go with the Crash Bandicoot re-review trilogy. I totally did not just make that up right now. I will admit, it's been fun going back to some older Crash games. Even though I have expressed my opinions on Nitro Kart and Twinsanity, they hold a place in my nostalgic heart, for better or for worse. If by any chance you haven't seen these videos yet, both links will be in the description. There was a message I was trying to bring across to the table, and that message is, it's okay to change your opinion on a topic. and to me, I felt like making videos on them, expressing my updated feelings in those games to give them the proper attention they deserve. So now, let's wrap everything up as we tackle Crash Tag Team Racing. Oh. To tell you the truth, I probably should have reviewed a different Crash game. My sincere apologies to any die-hard fans of Crash Tag Team Racing, but I did not enjoy my playthrough. So let's not waste enough time and let's get this over with. And once again, since this is a re-review, I won't describe about the beginning acts because I've already said it before in my old review, but I will talk about what I think about the story, and again, like my comments with Nitro Kart, the story is simple and straightforward because I believe all the focus is heading towards the gameplay. They just needed something to keep the ball rolling, and this is what they presented. Not the biggest fan of the story, but it's something. So after a tutorial section on how to play, you get greeted to Von Clutch's Motor World in the midway where you can fully explore. In Crash Twinsanity, you can explore different areas, but everything leads to one destination, so it's still linear. In Tag Team Racing, you can check out different places around the theme parks to how you see fit. So this is, technically, the very first Crash Bandicoot game to feature an open world. It's just a shame that in my opinion, the theme parks are pretty bland to check out. You can visit Mystery Islands based on the pirates, Happily Ever Faster, a fairy tale world, Tyrannosaurus Rex filled with prehistoric stuff, Dinosaur! Toontown based on the Egyptian times, and Astroland, a sci-fi world. They're honestly just as generic as they come when viewing them. Also, what's weird is for a theme park, there is a lot of dangerous hazards for casual tourists. I'm surprised the place is still up and running. Even in Midway, it just looks like the most boring theme park I've ever seen. Wait, you can hit children in this game? So bring the whole family around to Von Clutch's Motor World, where everything is legal. So for a game that's called Crash Tag Team Racing, you can also platform in this game. Sounds pretty neat, but unfortunately the platforming side of things suck. For starters, the controls are just awkward to control. I mentioned the controls in Twinsanity can be floaty, but here, it's even more floaty than before. I'm not sure how to put my finger on it. What makes it worse is the camera. Say if I want to jump to the next platform, and if it's right near a wall, the camera will not physically show me where to jump, making some of my jumps feel like guesswork, which shouldn't be the case at all. It does not want to cooperate with me when I need it the most. And the worst part where you try to combine them together is the double jump. Oh boy, I fucking hate the double jump. Every now and then, it does this weird animation that looks like it's in fast forward motion. I press the button to double jump accordingly, but out of nowhere, it'll think I pressed way too quickly and Crash falls below. This cost me a fair bit of time, and my patience too, as I have to scale back up to where I was. But I like to believe that the worst and somewhat laziest thing I've seen while platforming in Tag Team Racing is seeing ninja penguins. Ninja penguins everywhere. I have this feeling that there were supposed to be more enemies to beat down, but I don't even know. So what can you do in the hub worlds? Well, you can collect coins, power crystals, buy costumes, find gags, complete in minigames, and also collect power gems. They are the main collectibles, and to retrieve them, you need to grab enough power crystals to unlock jump pads to obtain a power gem in order to move on to the next theme park. And the best way to obtain crystals is to partake in some racing. And the racing is just as bad as the platforming. I mean, how do I even start with talking about the racing here? I suppose I should begin with the controls, and what did I say before in my Nitro Kart review? The controls in a racing game is the top priority in any racing game. It is literally a make or break, and if it fails, then there's a good % chance that the entire game will suffer. And I still stand by that comment. The controls are not great. Turning feels like a chore, especially when you're in a narrow track, and like how I described the platforming, driving just feels floaty. As in, I don't feel like I'm in full control of my vehicle as I'm just floating my way down towards the finish line. The racetracks to me feel pretty uninspiring. Perhaps there's a couple of set pieces I thought were pretty cool, but it's all just boring to race through, especially with every track layout has the same strategy, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The shortcuts don't even feel like shortcuts. Even taking a shortcut and going pretty fast while I'm at it, it still puts me in the same position with zero progress heading into first place. It's almost pointless to take shortcuts anyway. Power sliding feels off as well. The speed just slows down every time I use it, and it killed the momentum and pacing of a race. But hey, at least this game has power-ups like in CTR and CNK. They had cool power-ups like TNT crates, potions, and a mask that lets you be invincible for a limited amount of time. But then it becomes disappointing when you see the power-ups in tag team racing. I mean, I don't know who was smoking what, but who thought it was a good idea to have a chicken as a power-up? Let alone a dynamite strapped to a monkey?
What's up with the abuse here? First the children, then the penguins, then the chickens, now the monkeys? This game really is trying to offend everybody.
But I guess in the world of On Clutch's Motor World, everything is legal. But the racing here does have an important feature to use, and that is a clashing. By using the clash ability, you can turn into a ghost and clash with other racers, transforming two vehicles into one. One person drives around the track while the other shoots, almost feeling like a torrent section. It does sound like a pretty cool idea, and when seeing it for the first time, it looks pretty nice, but it does get old very quickly. This game pretty much encourages you to transform with someone, otherwise if you don't, you'll be out in the open to get wrecked and eventually fall behind. Each person you clash with has a unique weapon to use, but most of them can be pretty trash since it delivers low damage. And having said that, remember in Jak 3 how I talked about strategic dominance, and if this method is overpowering, then you'll keep using that same technique throughout the entire game? Well, there is a bit of strategic dominance in this game, and it features Engine. By clashing with Engine, you can use these rockets, and with every 2 to 3 hits, you blow up a car. Everything becomes way too easy using this method. Even in the hardest difficulty, you'll have no troubles. Clash with Engine, mow through every car you see, and just when the race is just about done, you unlink yourself with the car you're in, and bam! First place. Check out them KOs, boy!
By using this technique over and over all the time, it does make the racetracks itself suffer the most.
Part of the reason why I love the racetracks in Crash Team Racing, and to an extent Crash Nitro Kart, is because there's always a strategy behind them. Different layouts and different shortcuts to mix match to get the best and fastest time possible. But in tag team racing, all that is out the window, as the only technique you really need with every racetrack you come across is to clash with Engine, shoot cars, and win. And if you unlock Engine as a playable character, it makes clashing more easier since you already have the rockets in your arsenal. So, outside of racing and platforming, you can do a bit of side quests for your opponents here and there. Some will ask Crash to find an object, while others will ask for coins and perhaps a power crystal. And you can even find a lost teddy bear and give it back to Whoa-ho-ho.
Is that Crunch Bandicoot? Damn, he's looking jacked as hell. I'm about to bust.
It can seem repetitive by doing the same objectives over and over, and I personally don't even bother with most of these side quests anyway. But if you do end up completing the side quest for someone, you'll unlock that person as a playable character to use in the races. I suppose what is a cool feature in those side quests is if you don't know where to go, you can always talk to them some more and exhaust their dialogue. And the funny thing is, the more you do it, the angrier they get.
Now I am just so mad, Crash!
Another way to get crystals is to partake in stun arenas, where you perform tricks to earn points, and battle arenas where your team tries to demolish other drivers to earn the most points. I'll admit, if you're playing these game modes in multiplayer, it can be pretty fun. But guess who has no friends to play with?
This guy!
You can also play some mini games, and while the majority I believe has literally no interest at all, but I do like me some bowling. It's surprisingly good. And of course, throughout the hub worlds and theme parks, you can find a lot of gags along the way, whenever it's related to a death scene or a small funny skit. Most of them are pretty childish, and I do understand this game is aimed more towards a younger audience. I repeat, it's aimed towards a younger crowd while you can do this, but anyway, as an adult now, I still get a couple of chuckles here and there, but I do think most of the comedy here is pretty lame. Which is a shame because Twinsanity had some great comedy and we pretty much went from this...
How could things get any worse?
to this. Oh yeah, and that's another thing. You can fart and burp during the loading screens. So that's something for ya. I was gonna wrap everything up until I noticed this one particular thing that I never noticed until replaying this game just now. In Mystery Island, you do a favor for Cortex to get him a ninja costume, and in return, he gives you a power crystal. Now bear with me here. Cortex, the main villain of the entire Crash Bandicoot series, is giving away a power crystal, an item he's been obsessed with for years, to Crash Bandicoot, the last person Cortex wants the crystal to go to. Cortex gives a power crystal to Crash Bandicoot. I don't know about you, but that is seriously out of character here. And that was Crash Tag Team Racing. If my past experience has taught me anything, is that even if there's a game that has some of the worst aspects possible in a video game, it can often be one of the funniest and somewhat the best moments of a video game. But the only difference is, Crash Tag Team Racing was just terrible overall and I had zero fun whatsoever. The platforming is generic as they come, the racing is a joke, the controls suck, and while there were a couple of good ideas on the table, but the execution was very poor on the developer's end. It's funny though, I played this game a lot as a kid and I do have fond memories of playing it in my childhood days, but when it comes to a format of making these types of videos, the hardest part is removing all nostalgia and childhood memories out the window to see the game for where it truly lies. And to me, this is the worst Crash Bandicoot game I've ever played in terms of consoles. Yeah, some of you might have been looking forward to this review in terms of what I think about it. So after the, well, so-called success of Crash Tag Team Racing, I guess, the Crash Bandicoot series was going for a completely new look and a completely new approach. Many fans had a mixed reaction to Crash of the Titans. Some fans say that this game is pretty good, while others will go as far to say that this is the worst Crash Bandicoot game of all time. The story starts with Crash, Coco, Crunch, and Aku Aku just enjoying their day, and Crash helps Coco with a butter recycling device. Or something like that. Then, out of nowhere, Cortex appears and captures Coco and Aku Aku and freezes Crunch. Take note that we don't see Crunch again until the ending. Well, at least I don't have to hear that stupid Mr. T voice coming from his mouth.
I'm just gonna stay here a while.
Once Crash saves Aku Aku, it's up to Crash to save Coco and to stop Cortex's plans once again. Now, one of the reasons why people don't like this game is because there are some major changes on most characters. Mostly, they point the finger at Crash Bandicoot. But honestly, the character model for Crash in this game is actually okay. I guess the only bad thing I have about his model is the tattoos on his arms.
Now don't get me wrong, tattoos are awesome, but sometimes they don't belong on certain characters, and Crash Bandicoot is one of them.
But other than that, I don't mind the model for Crash in Crash of the Titans. I just wish I can say the same for the other characters. Some character models in this game are terrible to look at. Some examples are Crunch, Coco, and Tiny Tiger. More on him later. It feels like I'm missing one more character. Well, anyway, we catch up to Cortex and we find out his plans.
Uka Uka taught me a new process called Mojo Mutations.
Whoa, hold on just 1 second. Can you repeat that again, please?
Uka Uka.
Are you telling me that this is supposed to be Uka Uka? Oh yeah, I can totally see the resemblance.
That looks absolutely nothing like Uka Uka. Sure, Aku Aku's model is different, but at least he looks recognizable. Uka Uka, on the other hand, doesn't look recognizable at all. Now I've gone that out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is nothing like the original Crash games. It does have some platforming sections here and there, but this is mostly a beat-em-up game, hence why you can punch. In Crash of the Titans, you can collect Mojo. If you collect enough Mojo, Crash gets an extra life and new abilities. I personally don't like the Mojo, but this game really needed something different, so I'll let it slide. Get it? Slide? Wow, that joke was terrible. The new gameplay style that Crash can do is slide on Aku Aku like a skateboard, swinging from one rope to another, and running on ledges. Each level has a Mojo room. If you successfully complete it, you unlock a special prize. One of the major things you can do in this game is control and play as any Titan that you desire. I don't mind the Titan gameplay as I like to beat up bad guys with them. Probably my favourite Titan to play as is Scorporilla. Mainly because he's overpowered and he can destroy anything that stands in his way. And my least favourite Titan would have to be Stench. Later on, Uka Uka has had enough of Cortex failing and replaces him for Nina Cortex. I like Nina as the main villain in Crash of the Titans. It's something different, and it's a lot better than having Cortex as the main villain in almost every Crash Bandicoot game ever.
Can I talk about Tiny Tiger now? Fuck yes, here we go! I've been waiting to talk about Tiger since my review on Crash Tag Team Racing. But before we talk about Tiger, have a guess on what he sounds like. Even if you know the answer already, take a motherfucking guess.
Crash, I really am cross with you. I'm just trying to do my job, and you go and cause all this chaos.
Wow. Just wow. And here, I thought Crunch was bad. What was Radical Entertainment thinking when they talked about having Tiger being voiced as a parody of Mike Tyson? You know what? I think it went something like this. had an idea. Since one of the good guys have a bad parody of a celebrity, then it's only fair that one of the bad guys should have a parody of a celebrity.
And who should we give the character to?
Well, we might as well go with Tiny Tiger, since he doesn't really do anything memorable in this game.
Yes, I most certainly agree. But which voice should we give Tiger to? How about Pee Wee Herman? Or maybe we could have the Annoying Orange. Or perhaps we could have Tommy Wiseau.
Even better! Mike Tyson!
Well done, my young apprentice. And now, with Tiger being a parody of Mike Tyson, we will finally be able to make millions of dollars.
Why the fuck did I have to make Tiny Tiger as a parody of Mike Tyson? You might as well have Engine act like the Terminator while you're at it. I didn't mention this at Tag Team Racing, but I'm gonna mention it now. Because Crunch acts just like Mr. T, it just ruins the character for me. And that goes for Tiny Tiger.
Remember how in the older Crash Bandicoot games, Tiger just wanted to squash Crash and kill him with his pitchfork? Well, that awesome character is now ruined by that fucking Mike Tyson voice. I apologize if I'm swearing a bit too much at this section, but seeing game developers doing stuff like this really pisses me the fuck off. Okay, now I've gotten all that out of my system, let's move on. The comedy in this game is okay. It's not as good as Twinsanity, but it's definitely a lot better than Tag Team Racing. There's 20 levels in Crash of the Titans, and they are treated as episodes. When you finish an episode, you can check out how many enemies you killed, how many spy bots you destroyed, and how many combos you have inflicted on your enemies. While I don't mind it, and it does give us some replay value to try to get a gold, but come on. Why the fuck does the spy bots have to look like a fucking toilet? You also get lives in this game. If you lose all your lives, you'll have to start the level all over again, even if you're towards the end. I already explained this before in my SpongeBob SquarePants movie game review, that there is nothing worse than starting a level all over again. Throughout each level, you can unlock concept art and clothing for Crash Bandicoot. And you can even check out bios for each Titan. Near the end of the game, we finally catch up to Nina Cortex and defeat her. We save Coco, and Cortex has some specific words to say to Nina.
Oh, Nina, betraying me is the most vile, evil thing you could have ever done. You were a skank.
What?
I promise, from now on, I'll be more evil, more villainous, more horrible! Horrible! Oh, and go kill bandicoots, too. I'm still going to spank you stupid for this.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave this here, so, do with it as you will.
And it looks like everything is back to normal. Even though Wumpa Island is pretty much destroyed, but who cares? It's time for some fucking pancakes.
Let's go home and eat pancakes. Pancakes!
I'm gonna call bullshit on this one. If you think pancakes was the first word Crash ever said, then people have clearly forgotten about this.
Uh-oh.
Yep, I believe Crash's first word he said was uh-oh. And yes, it is an expression,
But it's also a fucking word, people!
Overall, when you look at this game just by itself, it's not that bad of a game. The Titans gameplay is alright, and I did laugh a couple of times during my playthrough, but if you compare this game to the other Crash Bandicoot games, Crash of the Titans isn't exactly a good Crash Bandicoot game. To be fairly honest with all of you, I wasn't really looking forward to playing Mind Over Mutants at all. Mainly because I didn't really enjoy Crash of the Titans, and because of shit like this. But now after playing it, I actually think it's an okay game. It's not the best Crash Bandicoot game by any means, but I seem to find this game more enjoyable than Crash of the Titans. Following the events of Crash of the Titans, the story starts with Crash, Coco, Crunch, and Aku Aku just doing whatever Bandicoots do best. Yeah, there's nothing much I can say about it, so let's move on. Meanwhile, Cortex joins forces with Embryo. The last time we saw Embryo was in Crash Twinsanity. He is by far the best character in this game, just the way how he delivers his lines. While I'm at it, the character models in Mind Over Mutants have improved, especially with Crunch. He looks like a complete badass until you hear that stupid Mr. T's voice coming from his butt crack. But anyway, back to the story. Both Cortex and Embryo invented the NV. By wearing a device, it can not only control the minds of any mutants, but Bandicoots as well. Crash and Aku Aku are not affected by the device, but Coco and Crunch are affected. And as a result, they are brainwashed. So it's once again up to Crash and Aku Aku to save Coco and Crunch and to stop Cortex and Embryo's plans once and for all. While I'm not a huge fan of the story, I do like that they have improved the gameplay. Instead of going level by level, Mind Over Mutants features an open world style, which is a good thing. You get to travel to Wampa Island, the Ice Village, and the deserts. They added in a multiplier. By attacking the enemies and getting combos, your multiplier goes up. The higher the combos are, the higher the multiplier goes. This makes leveling up much more easier, but if you get hit or you die, then the multiplier drops back down to 0. Crash has some new special abilities, like climbing up on walls and digging underground. Something that Bandicoots can actually do, might I add. Not only you can upgrade Crash, but you can also upgrade Titans as well. Speaking of Titans, they have also improved the Titans gameplay. The Titans move a lot more quicker and it feels good. You can now finally jump with your Titan, which is nice, and you can counterattack and dodge Titans attacks. The Titans in this game looks a lot more better than the previous game, as they look like absolute savages.
What the fuck are you looking at?
And some returning Titans can perform new moves. Another cool thing you can do is store your favorite Titan for certain circumstances. Overall, the Titans are definitely a lot more better compared to Crash of the Titans. All except for one. TK. He is the worst Titan out of all of them. The comedy in this game is okay. It's not the best, but I can see that they are trying to improve. So far, I've been saying some good things about this game, including a couple of minor issues. But now we're getting to the part where there's one little feature that can ruin this game as a whole, depending on your mindset. And that, my friends, is backtracking. Now, backtracking is a very risky move to put in your video games. But if you do it just right, like God of War 3 and Jak 2, it can make backtracking a lot of fun. But in here, the game just forces you to backtrack. Going through the same section over and over again feels annoying and very tedious. I always find myself going past the enemies because I'm tired of going backwards and forwards and I want to finish this game as quickly as I can, all because of the constant and repetitive backtracking. And how bad is backtracking in Mind Over Mutants? Well, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn and soda, and let me explain. Cue the music. So Coco suggests that Nina can help them out. She is located at the evil public school because Cortex sent her there, and he did some things to her in the previous game that I shouldn't really mention. So I'm just gonna leave this picture right here. So we head over to the Ice Village, and the people there have absolutely no idea where Nina is. But there's one person that tells you to head over to the prison. So we head over to the prison and hear some of Nina's minions talking about the school. We continue along the path and we see TK. Again, the worst Titan in this game. We come back to the Ice Village and now we find out that we need a Titan that can spin. So we need to find a Rhino Roller. So instead of teleporting us out, we walk all the way back doing the same puzzles again and heading back to Wampa Island and go along this section. We see and defeat a Scorporilla and we continue our journey into the deserts. We finally found a Rhino Roller and defeat him. Instead of going back the way we came, we have to push forward doing some more unnecessary shit and talking to some people that we don't care about. Then we get out of the deserts, back the way we came, into Wampa Island and into the Ice Village doing the same puzzles once again, and all of a sudden, you see a fucking Rhino Roller that just so happens to be at the entrance of the Ice Village, making this journey from going to the deserts to finding a Rhino Roller and coming back to the Ice Village completely fucking pointless. And so, we move on, open the gate and do some more stuff, and we finally made it to the school. Now, you're probably thinking that backtracking can't be that bad in this game. Well, trust me when I say this. Once you have experienced the backtracking in Mind Over Mutants, it can be one of the most frustrating and exhausting moments in video game history. Every cutscene you see has a different style and animation, from the puppets, to the horror, to the anime. It is something cool to see, but I don't understand why it's needed. Another problem that this game has is there are too many cinematic cutscenes. And there are some cutscenes that shows you where to go to next. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm nitpicking, and I know that this game is aimed at kids, but for fuck's sake, kids are not stupid. I'm pretty sure kids can find any of this out for themselves just fine in Mind Over Mutants without the cinematic cutscenes. It's like this game is holding you by the hand as you go along. It's not fun. Not fun at all. The soundtrack is once again okay. It's mostly the same as Crash of the Titans, so I can't really complain too much about it. I guess the last thing I should talk about is the boss fights, and they are pretty easy. But I do like the concept of trying to beat Coco and Crunch while they are hypnotized. It kind of reminds me of Crash Bandicoot 2 and Tranced on Game Boy Advance. And, honestly, I think that's all I really need to talk about. So, let's just get to the verdict. I've said it once and I'll say it again. It's not the best Crash Bandicoot game by any means, but it is a better improvement than Crash of the Titans. I like how they decided to use the open world style, although I wish they could have done a better execution. The Titans gameplay is a lot more better, and I'm glad that they didn't botch Embryo's character, and while all those things are good, the backtracking is really the only thing that hurts this game. Oh, hell yeah. Many Crash Bandicoot fans thought that the Crash Bandicoot series was officially dead, and we could never see a new Crash Bandicoot game ever again. Until we witnessed E3 2016, when it was announced that all 3 original Crash games, Crash Bandicoot 1, Cortex Strikes Back, and Warped, will be remade from the ground up on PlayStation 4. And of course, a lot of people, including myself, was all aboard for the hype train, and even though I did have some doubts about this game, I still couldn't wait to get my hands on it.
There's 2 things I want to talk about before I start the review. First off, for those who are wondering, this is not a remastered edition. This game is, put simply, a remake. Just wanted to clarify. And 2, I won't be talking about the story, since I'm pretty sure most of you watching know what the story is about.
The way how I'm going to structure this review is I'll first be talking about the first Crash Bandicoot game, then Cortex Strikes Back, then finally, Warped. I'll try to keep each one nice and quick, so this video doesn't go into overtime. So with that being said, let's start off the review with Crash Bandicoot 1. My first reaction to this intro is wow. Looking at the intro, you get an understanding of what the rest of the game is going to be like. I personally believe that the intro hypes up players to get ready for what any game has in store, and if the intro is flat and not interesting, then the chances are the players are just going to put the controller down and never play that game again. This intro, however, is just fun to watch. The bright colors, the recreated cutscenes, and some top-notch voice acting really complements this game as a whole. Looking at the map, and I'm already excited to playing this game once again. As for how the game looks, it looks absolutely stunning. The designs of each level are beautiful, and they all fit pretty well with the next-gen consoles. One of the things I love about this game is that the controls are more tighter than the original. Cause in the original Crash game, the controls were pretty slippery, making platforming a bit frustrating. But in here, the controls are a lot more tighter, and because of that, I actually had a more better playthrough on the Insane Trilogy rather than the original. When I first played this Crash, I did notice that he is a bit more heavier when you move and jump with him. But once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. The bonus stages have improved. No more if you die on a bonus stage, you don't get to save the game. The bonus stages are treated as they should have been treated in the original. Bonus stages. Nothing more and nothing less. Also, I just love the detail they added with Torna. And because the bonus stages are treated as bonus stages, you can save the game whenever you want. Again, something that they should have added in the original. As for the difficulty, they did keep the challenge that made Crash 1 great, but I did find myself stuck in certain levels that were easy to get past in the original. There is something that I need to bring my attention to, and that is the loading screens. I don't usually have a problem when it comes to loading screens, unless if they are too long. The loading screens here are pretty cheap if you ask me. A black background, some text for the name of the level and hints, and Aku Aku just floating around as if he's high on drugs or something.
I was gonna clean my room until I got high.
As for the bosses, it is what you'll expect. Not much challenge, and it is still pretty easy. Especially with Papu Papu, despite the extra hits they added, but man, the little details they added to each boss is just perfect. Now don't get me wrong, Crash Bandicoot is a good game back in its prime, and it is still an instant classic to this very day, but in some strange way, I feel that this game is a bit outdated compared to Cortex Strikes Back and Warped in my opinion. But now with the small improvements, this game is a great experience for anyone who wants to start playing platform games.
So, with that done, let's move on to one of my favorite video games of all time,
Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back.
Oh, hell to the fucking yeah. Seeing how Cortex Strikes Back is my favourite game of all time, in my opinion, I was looking forward to playing this game the most. The intro is once again good. Added in those extra details is really nice to watch. Lex Lane does do a good performance as Cortex in all three Crash games. In my opinion, Clancy Brown does do a better performance as Cortex back in the original, as he was more intimidating. But I still liked Lex Lane's performance. Once I started the Total Woods level, the nostalgia had completely taken over me, and I was just playing this game for hours and hours and hours. And it felt awesome. My favourite levels in the Insane Trilogy is the Ruin level. It looks very scary and the design is well executed.
The new feature that this game offers is that you can now play as Coco through all the three Crash Bandicoot games as platforming. And the only difference between this game and Wrath of Cortex is Coco plays just like Crash.
The sliding, the spinning, and the way how she platforms just works nicely. I especially love how they explain the whole playing Coco in Crash 1 and 2 because time travel from Warped. Yeah. I haven't talked too much about the flaws yet, and I'll get to them right now, but take note that they're only just minor issues, so try not to take them seriously as they're just personal opinions of mine because I've been playing the original Crash games for a very long time. Except for the original Crash game, of course, as I've already mentioned in my Crash Bandicoot 1 review. For starters, I'm not much of a fan of the holograms as I was in the original. A few things are missing, including the audio disruption and the glitching. And the polar bear levels feels a bit more slower, and he doesn't move as smooth than the original. And the way how he moves from left to right just feels way off. The soundtrack in the Insane Trilogy is pretty awesome, mostly because they're all remixes, but they still stay true to the classics. However, some of the soundtrack doesn't fit the tone of the levels sometimes. The bosses are still pretty much the same, far too easy, except for Engine of course. Cortex still takes around 45 seconds to beat him, but I can appreciate the new animation that they added before you chase him.
So, much like Crash Bandicoot 1, I enjoyed Cortex Strikes Back. The game looks good, and the controls are as tight as ever. A few details are missing, but it won't distract you because of the awesome gameplay that it offers. So, now we're 2 down and 1 to go. Let's not waste any more time and warp right into Crash 3.
Once again, the intro is fun to watch, but there is something that I need to address. Right up to the part when you see Uka Uka for the first time, the environment around the Time Twister is bright. Maybe a bit too bright. Back in the original Crash Warp game, the tone was dark and it looks very spooky. Even seeing N Trophy in the background and revealing himself got me really scared when I was a kid, and it's even scary to this very day. But in here, all that is taken away and it's kinda ruined for me. But besides that, Crash 3 looks as good just as the others.
The vehicle levels have improved when it comes to the controls. The pure levels move more smoothly, and the jet skis are, well, slightly better. The controls are still pretty slippery, but I can see that they have tried to improve them. As for the motorbike levels are concerned, the motorbike itself does move better, but the way how the camera adjusts itself when Crash is about to jump off the ramp looks weird in my opinion. The bosses are kind of similar to the others, but they are enjoyable to fight against. Another round or two would have been nice, but it's still good nonetheless. There is a huge problem I have with one of the boss fights in Crash 3. And that, my dear viewers, is Dingo Dial. What? You thought I was going to put in that sound effect over Dingo Dial? Just like I've done it with all the other Crash Bandicoot reviews? Well, you're wrong. Never judge a book by its cover. Well, anyway, the boss fight with Dingo Dial was okay, don't get me wrong, but the problem starts at the end. When I beat Dingo Dial, I was waiting for him to say the iconic line that he said back in the original Crash 3 game, but nothing happened. They took away one of the most memorable lines in Warped. Really disappointing.
You thrashed me, mate. No worries, but you'll soon be up against much worse.
And yes, I do believe that it is a huge issue, because remember, I'm reviewing this game based on its attention to detail. One more thing to talk about, and that would be the relics. Now, I've already explained in my Crash 3 review that I'm not a fan of the relics, as I think that the relics ruined Crash 3 for me. What do I think about them here? Well, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually love the relics in Insane Trilogy. And there's a reason for this, and that's because the relics have a purpose. For starters, they are not required for the 100% completion outside of Warped. Another reason why I like it is they are required to get a platinum trophy. Nowadays in video games, getting all the achievements and trophies are a pretty big deal, and because the relics are required to get a platinum, it brings in some replay value and a challenge for anyone who's trying to get a platinum. To all of you who is trying to get a platinum on all 3 Crash games, I say, good luck. You will definitely need it. Especially in Crash Bandicoot 1. Overall, Warp does lack the most when it comes to detail, but just like the first 2 Crash games, the gameplay is fun and the graphics looks good as always. It's Crash 3. What do you expect? It's just as good as the original Warp game, and looking at the visuals and the graphics and listening to the soundtrack, it's still an enjoyable experience. So now I've covered all 3 Crash Bandicoot games, what do I think about this game as a whole? Well, first, I'm glad that Vicarious Visions haven't messed up while developing this game, because keep in mind that the last Crash game they developed on consoles was Crash Nitro Kart, and that game was nothing more than an exact copy clone of Crash Team Racing, but much worse. At the end of the day, I believe that Vicarious Visions have given us an impressive, recreated 3 Crash Bandicoot games that we all know and hold to our hearts very dearly. If I was forced to say what was the best Crash game out of the trilogy, you'd think I would say Cortex Strikes Back, seeing that it is my favorite game of all time, right? Well, actually, I'm gonna give the edge to Crash Bandicoot 1. Because with all the improvements with the tighter controls and being able to save the game whenever we want to, it's given us a more enjoyable or even a better Crash Bandicoot experience rather than the original game, in my opinion. And sure, I'll probably will stick to the original Crash games from here on out, since I grew up with them as a kid. But after playing this game, I'll definitely be coming back for the Insane Trilogy. One more thing I need to say to Vicarious Visions. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us all 3 Crash Bandicoot games that we grew up playing over the years, and not screwing it up. Because if they had screwed it up, then this game would have come back to haunt them. Vicarious Visions have excelled as game developers compared to their earlier work, and I look forward to what surprises they have for us in the future. Maybe we can see a remake of Crash Team Racing. Or maybe we can see a remake of a certain purple dragon we've been waiting so patiently. Well, we'll just have to wait and see what they have in store. Okay, I should probably give out a lot more of my thoughts than that. Man, the day that CTR Nitro Fueled finally came out in stores, my reaction was through the roof. I must have spent all day for a good number of hours playing through this game and reliving my childhood. Going through adventure mode, time trials, playing the tracks from Nitro Kart, and playing online. Not only that, but also checking out the pit stop, and trust me, I'll get to that later. I have had a fantastic time playing through Nitro Fueled, and seeing this PlayStation 1 classic remade from the ground up being turned into something beautiful is really awesome. But however, before the game's release and playing Crash Team Racing on PlayStation 4, I knew that this game would not live up to the quality of the OG. Crash Team Racing on PlayStation 1 is arguably the best kart racing game of all time, hands down. There's literally little to no flaws about that game, and the remake has quite a lot of holes to fill if it wants to be just as better as the original. And you know, hindsight is a very funny thing, because it turns out that 2 months after the release, I was right. Does it mean that this is a bad game? Of course not. I love playing this game time after time, and I do always give out compliments to any game I come across. But if I see something I don't like, then I'm not afraid to give out some negative criticism. We get treated to the opening before reaching to the main menu, and already I'm super pumped. A nice little introduction with some small tweaks, having the narrator saying Beanox's name instead of Naughty Dog. And after agreeing to some terms and conditions for whatever strange reason, we make it to the main menu. And everything you know and love about Crash Team Racing is here. Time trials, battle arenas, and cup tournaments to name a few. And not forgetting to mention that all the tracks and battle arenas from Crash Nitro Kart are here as well. That is pretty goddamn awesome. So with that said, let's start off with the adventure mode. The introduction hits the nostalgia feelings very hard for me, and it's getting me excited to relive my childhood once again. Although this time around, Nitrous Oxide's monologue has changed, but I think it is for the better, as you don't want to stir any conflict with parents when their kids are playing Nitro Fueled.
But if I win, I will turn your entire globe into a concrete parking lot and make you my minions.
And plus, I love it when Oxide is talking, Crash is getting bored and wants to have a sleep. Everything you know and love is here. Races, crystal challenges, relics, tokens, boss races, and hub worlds to explore. It feels like I'm replaying this all over again for the very first time. You can either start off with classic mode, playing adventure mode just like the PlayStation 1 days, or you can play it in Nitro Fueled mode. What that means is throughout adventure mode, you can switch up the gameplay by changing characters, cards, what color they wear, and adding stickers. It's cool that you can switch the characters up whenever you please, just to make sure that you can find a character that fits your style to keep on winning races. Because every track is different, and using the same character is not ideal, as your character doesn't fit the track well. And I think the character customization was one of the game's biggest advertisements, right next to online. Being able to fully customize your kart sounds very cool, but after going through them,
I'm kinda mixed about them. I really like that you can customize your car to your style and show it off with everyone online, but in adventure mode, no matter what race you go on, you'll see everyone wearing different attires. It might just be me that feels about this, but I do prefer characters with their regular clothes. I'm fine with it in online mode, but having it in adventure mode, it seems a bit unbalanced and untidy. But anyway, I bought Nitro Fueled for the gameplay, and oh my days. I think I'm gonna take a quote about what I felt about the Spyro Reignited trilogy and apply it here.
This game looks so fucking beautiful!
And it does! The amount of details that have been added in Nitro Fueled is amazing. A statue of a character to show that this is their track, different ideas of the startup races, the shades of bright colors, the smokes in the back of the cart. I can go forever about this. The racetracks of CTR has been faithfully remade into something great. Hot Air Skyway is still my favorite racetrack, Roost Tubes looks so cool and underwater, and even though there's some mixed reactions to Sewer Speedway, but I can still beat races by a mile. Oxide Station comes very close to being my favorite track in Nitro Fueled, just because when you head outside the station, the music gets lower and it makes you feel like you're in space. But having said that, what about the Crash Nitro Kart racetracks?
Hey, cheese sauce, Crackers here. So you know how I said about the Crash Nitro Fueled tracks is pretty goddamn awesome in Nitro Fueled, and I still think it is, but I feel that the execution-wise, it's not what I expected.
First off, they got rid of the anti-gravity sections, which I'm very pleased about it, because I wasn't a big of a fan of driving in anti-gravity, similar to Mario Kart, and the controls always felt slippery back then. But this does create one small problem for me, and that is some of the features that made the tracks memorable have been altered or completely removed. Biggest example I can think of is Out in Time. In the original, you can drive around a giant clock while in anti-gravity. That was one of my memorable moments I remember playing Nitro Kart growing up. But now, it's completely changed. Some of them does look okay, but you can tell that some of the others kind of feels like they've been added in at the last minute. Almost rushed, in another word. And secondly, there is no adventure mode for Crash Nitro Kart, and I do think that's pretty disappointing, because you basically do have the tracks, the music, the battle arenas, the cups, and even the CTR tokens and the relics. They easily could have just added it in, as a reward for completing Crash Team Racing's campaign for 100%. And without Nitro Kart's adventure mode, those tracks really don't have a purpose being here in this game, except for online multiplayer. As soon as I started playing online with one of the Crash Nitro Kart racetracks, I honestly forgot they were in the game. Maybe they'll add the adventure mode in as a DLC in the future, I don't know. But does that mean that the Crash Nitro Kart racetracks are bad? No. I will easily take the remade Nitro Kart tracks rather than the original ones any day of the week. The C and K tracks in Nitro Fueled are really good despite a couple of nitpicks I mentioned, and I think that's because of the controls in this game. This is exactly what Nitro Kart should have been. Combining the controls of Crash Team Racing with Nitro Kart's racetracks, you get a totally different ballgame. The controls are responsive and really easy to handle. None of the R2 to accelerate crap. Just the good old classic controls. To any veteran players, it will take a while to adjust the settings of what Nitro Fueled offers, but once you get used to it, you'll be drifting those turns and taking those shortcuts like a boss. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel that Nitro Fueled is more faster than the original, because I find myself hitting the brakes in certain areas that I normally wouldn't use the brake button. Speaking of feeling more faster, the AI seems to be more competitive, which, don't get me wrong, I like a good challenge. There were quite a few close calls when it comes to winning a race. Even a medium difficulty can provide you to be more focused on your TV screen. The boosting in this game is wow. If you think that you can go fast in the original, then Nitro Fueled will say, hold my beer. The boosting here is so much more faster. The more successful you are with your time to boost, the more speed you'll obtain. There are many ways this game lets you know when it's time to boost. From the smokers turning dark, the wheels shining bright, and the brighter they are, the greater the boost, and of course, the boost meters. They brought the boost meters from CTR and CNK in this game, which is cool, and they added in their own version of a boost meter. It is more easier to follow as there are certain points in the boost meter. The middle is good, but the closer you get to it is great. And has anyone heard of this word in CTR called Ultimate Sacred Fire? I just found that out from an episode of Square Eye Jack. Well, for those who don't know, what that means is that if you get enough boost to make your smokers turn blue, then you get to go really fast. You can do this in the original, and as for Nitro Fueled, because the game feels more quicker, once you obtained Ultimate Sacred Fire, the amount of speed is insane. I'm never gonna stop using that. Here's just an example of what Ultimate Sacred Fire is all about. You'll be driving around so quickly around each turn that you'll have to think ahead and try not to brush up on the sides. It's like you have little to no control over this. I'm still pretty much going through the track like a missile right now. This is absolutely crazy, and at the same time, very satisfying once you've triggered Ultimate Sacred Fire.
What's cool as well is you can not only play the characters from Crash Team Racing, but Nitro Kart as well. Hell, even the newly characters from the Grand Prix to top it all off. If you want to play as a dinosaur, now you can. If you want to play as Sonic the Hedgehog, now you can. This is much more better than a CGI version, by the way. And if you want to play as... Oh. That's interesting. I didn't know you could play as Shrek.
Somebody wants... The soundtrack has no complaints for me, and I think you already know that the soundtrack is really good. Of course you can change the music type from Nitro Fueled to Classic, but again, like Spyro Reignited Trilogy, why would you? Because the music here is just as good as the original. The shortcuts are here as well, and as always, they are great to execute. However, I have noticed that some shortcuts didn't make the cut. The number of tricks you can do in the original is so satisfying to perform, and it does suck that the shortcuts you can do in the original you can't perform in Nitro Fueled. Some of them are glitches anyway, but still. The bosses now have intros and outros, and it's so cool that Beenox added it in, as it gives the dialogue much more life. They'll come right at your face taunting you if you're even worth facing Oxide for the fate of the planet. As for the boss race, it's exactly what you'll expect. Nothing noteworthy to talk about. They're just the same bosses you know from the original. Like I said, you can unlock a lot of characters, and that includes Nitrous Oxide. Not only that, but you can unlock the hover carts. Finally, after many years of waiting, you can finally drive around in Oxide's cart. I was expecting it to be bigger, mainly because I'm so used to the original, but it's still very cool that Beenox added this in. And now, this brings us to the online mode. One of the things I was really keen on is playing CTR once again, but playing it online. Many people have claimed that they are the absolute best of the best, and now, all the trash talking and all the arrogant egos gets tested to truly find out who really is the best CTR player. Of course, I have demonstrated before that I am a veteran and showing everyone what it takes to be one. Okay, I'm being sarcastic.
Like I said, it's not about winning, it's about having fun. And I think that's what I fucking hate
It's really fun to play online once you're in a full lobby. Sometimes the lobby changes from having a full lobby to just having one person, but that's okay, because even if you're racing with one person, the rest will be filled up with AI characters, so it won't make the online experience lonely. The online is good, but it's not perfect by any means. There are only two options to play, race or battle.
that's it. Why not add in cup tournaments? That would be pretty fun. Again, maybe they'll add it in the future, but we'll just wait and see. Every now and then, for whatever reason, the game will just kick everyone out. It's really annoying, and I hope they do fix this issue. And hey, what do you know? By the time the game came out in stores, they already released the first patch update day 1. That just shows how much Beenox actually cares about this game and wants it to succeed. And as for the battle modes, I haven't even played the mode online before because no one is even on there. It is a bit of a shame that I don't see much people in battle mode because the battle modes are really fun and it fits the concept of online challenge. And now, this brings us to the pit stop. You'll see different items to buy, and for every 24 hours they disappear and new items will make their place. I would actually like it if they had a search button so you can look up for what item you really want instead of waiting for the item to appear. And for every time you earn Wumpa coins, you can head over to the pit stop and purchase characters, costumes, cards, and stickers. You earn Wumpa coins by just playing the game. And that is a good way to unlock everything without using real money.
That's what I would be saying right now until they done it. The fuckers actually did it. Activision had the balls to include microtransactions. Hey, cheese sauce, Crackers here once again. What the fuck, Activision?
This is such a big middle finger to anyone who's played this game. I know you only earn so little coins, but come on. What are you doing to my orange fluffy boy? Okay, I understand why they added it in, and I know some people out there don't mind microtransactions, but for me personally, I prefer unlocking content not by spending real money, but just playing the game. And playing the game and going through unlocking stuff is so much more rewarding. What's also a huge piss take is they added it in around 2 months after the release. Say what you want about Call of Duty and the amount of microtransactions built in, but at least they were there on day 1. But in Nitro Fueled, this was a desperate attempt from Activision's part that they need the money. And because they know that you love Crash Bandicoot, you'll most likely buy into the system. And if I know what this is going towards, Crash Team Racing will turn into a huge online marketing scam filled with even more costumes and more cards and more stuff that you want, raising the Wumpa coins even higher than before, and the best way to get the items is spending your hard-earned real cash.
I'm somewhat a little bit concerned and scared for Nitro Fueled and for its future if I know what is going to happen. What sucks as well is that if you don't have online, you don't get any of the unlockable characters in the pit stop, and that includes the Nitro card characters. You know, I never thought I would say this, but Gaming Critic, what do you think of all this? Hey, wait a second. Don't tell me you're gonna do your introduction again. Hello, my name is the Gaming Critic. I review video games with no regrets whatsoever. You know what happens? Huh? But you know what happens when Activision tries to fuck over one of my childhood games with microtransactions and pay to win? You know what happens? Activision?
You just made the list!
You know, I think I finally understand why I got rid of the gaming critic in the first place.
Okay, so what do I really think about CTR Nitro Fueled? Like I said from the very start, it's not terrible, but it's nowhere near a masterpiece. Beanox did a wonderful job recreating my childhood game and turning it into a nice trip down memory lane. The cutscenes are nicely created, the gameplay feels more faster, the boosting is insane, there's just a whole lot of good here. The biggest complaint I have about the game as a whole is the pit stop and the state that it's in. I think this game would be much more better off without the pit stop, so you can unlock items by playing the game and completing challenges, and show everyone out there that there is a lot more greater way to unlock stuff than spending real cash. I do hope that they can add in the Nitro Kart Adventure mode because you already have everything, you just need a few cutscenes and some hub worlds. My mind was questioning back and forth if this game is the best way to experience CTR, and honestly, I still haven't figured it out. Both the original and the remake are good in their own unique way, and they all have their own faults. Maybe later down the line, I'll make a revisit episode like I did with the Insane Trilogy last year, and hopefully by then, I will have my overall thoughts. But for now, let's embrace this beautiful remake without worrying about Activision and their scam. Well. After the patient waiting and after all the hype circling around this certain game, we are now graced with yet another Crash Bandicoot game. But this time around, there's something different with this one. This newest creation wasn't a remake of another already made product. This was a full-on, brand new Crash Bandicoot game in Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. And with that headline, it definitely is about time. And keep in mind, the last time we saw a Crash game on consoles that was not a remake was Crash Mind Over Mutants, which was 12 years ago as of this recording. And not to mention, with the story following the events after Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped, this is indeed the 4th installment of the main storyline.
So the question does come to mind. Are we supposed to consider Crash games like The Wrath of Cortex and Twinsanity as spin-off titles? Because we have just entered a new dimension. Well, technically multiple dimensions, but we'll get to that later.
Toys for Bob have done it again. They were responsible for the Spyro Reignited trilogy, and after hearing that they are going to be handling this game, I had more than enough confidence that they will do a great job. And now we're about to see if they have done just that. Before we do that, I do have to lay out some rules. First off, do expect spoilers from the game's story and towards the end as well, since it is a newer video game from this upload. So if you don't want to get spoiled from the story, please leave the video now. And secondly, I wasn't focusing too much on 100%ing It's About Time, as I wanted my first playthrough to be easy and relaxing, so don't feel cringy if I somehow could have gone that box, but didn't because I wanted to finish the game. So with that said, let's begin. Believe it or not, we actually start the game with accepting the terms and conditions. They're always a pain in the butt. So once you've chosen your initials and playstyle, we can now finally begin. Crash 4 It's About Time starts off decades after the events of Crash 3 Warped, and Trophy and Uka Uka are trying to find a way out, and Cortex is plotting his revenge. Uka Uka has now opened a portal to another dimension but passes out in the process, and Trophy and Cortex go through the portal, leaving Uka Uka by himself. Meanwhile, Aku Aku notices a strange disturbance lurking around, and he asks Crash to go to investigate, but he has other plans. And after some convincing, Crash goes off to find whatever is causing the disturbance. Later on, Crash finds one of the 4 quantum masks, Nani Loli. The 4 ancient quantum masks have power over space and time, and they have to do what it takes to seal any unusual portal shut. Nani Loli sees one of the portals has been opened, realizing the dangerous consequence that can happen. And later on, we discover that Cortex and Trophy are the ones behind it. So it's up to Crash and Coco helping the quantum mask to shut the portals and stop Cortex and Trophy. Personally, I do feel the whole multi-universe story is pretty overrated in my opinion, as I somehow always see this during most AAA games. But regardless, I'm really into the story this game presents. It's something simple, which is all I can ask for in a Crash Bandicoot game, cause the last thing I want is for this game to be over the top with soap operas and weird voice acting like Tiny Tiger being a Mike Tyson parody in Crash of the Titans. While I'm here, I'll talk about the model design for Crash. Now, I have seen tweets on Twitter from people on how weird looking Crash's design is, but honestly, I like it. Probably a lot more than the insane version. He looks clean, nice, and adorable, but not in the way that persuades me to be a furry. I will say that Cortex's model was a bit strange to me at first, but I got used to it towards the end. The graphics are very colourful and gorgeous to see with my own very eyes. From start to finish, It's About Time runs clean and I didn't notice any glitches or frame drops from my end at least, and it's all accompanied by some nice looking cutscenes. Just by watching them, they definitely remind me of how nice the cutscenes were in Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Nothing but positives so far, and we're just getting started.
The biggest talking point about It's About Time was always going to be about the gameplay. And just by watching someone play it online, watching a friend play it, or trying it out for yourself, you can tell that this is going to be a completely new experience.
The gameplay may seem what you expect at first. Warp into a level, collecting all the boxes, why do I always miss one goddamn box all the time? And gems if you can find some, and leave. But the Crash Bandicoot gameplay style is now way more in-depth than before. This game offers two types of gameplay. One is the retro. You have a limited amount of lives, and if you get a game over, you have to start the level again. You know, the Crash gameplay style we're all familiar with. And the second one being modern. Instead of a life counter, you get a death counter, tracking the number of times you fail during one level. You do have unlimited attempts, so knock yourself out. In fact, this game encourages players to play this game on modern, because later on when I progress into the more difficult levels, I was kinda glad I decided to stick with modern and not retro. The controls are very tight and I felt like I've always been in control of whoever I play as. Even the vehicle stages, I feel like I was in control, and we will get to those vehicles later on. Overall, if I messed up, I know it was my fault and not the controls. The movesets for Crash and Coco are the same as always. You can use your spin attack, jumping along with a double jump as well, crouching, slide, and jump slide. Two new moves Crash and Coco can do are wall running and these grind segments that takes you from one section to another. I definitely appreciate the new added features the player can do. The gameplay is more story driven than a simple straight line, as we all know, as in-game cutscenes and character talking can occur when you're going through a level. It's a nice change of pace to keep up with the current times. Your boxes are still the same as always, with a regular box, bouncy box, unbreakable box, TNT crate, nitro crate, and an Aku Aku box. If you choose modern as your gameplay style, you won't see any extra life boxes at all. But they did add a new box that shoots out fire and can hurt the player if you're not too careful. They also added in a time limit for some boxes. If you hit the exclamation box, the invisible boxes will appear and you have to break them before the time runs out. Again, it is the same formula, but adding something new and different to complement this game, and I like it. I like to believe the main collectibles to collect are the Quantum Mask, as that's pretty much your major objective. So no power crystals this time around, thank god. Each mask you collect have different abilities the player can use throughout the game. Nani Loli's power is making objects appear and disappear, whenever it's a box or even platforms. The second mask is Alcano, and his power is spinning rapidly like the Tasmanian Devil from Looney Tunes, and he can jump high when doing so. He can also break the unbreakable boxes as well. The third mask is Kapuna Wa, and her power is slowing down time, which does make it a lot easier to jump on fast moving platforms and hitting fast moving enemies. Just a side note, because you can slow down time for a bit, you can technically walk on nitro crates, but they will slowly explode when doing so. And that's how you do it. It's About Time succeeded when the Wrath of Cortex tried to accomplish. Yes, walking on nitro crates doesn't make a lot of sense, I get it. cause even with a single touch can immediately blow up. But walking on nitro crates when time is slowed down, that kinda makes sense. Those type of abilities should be treated as such and not treated as gimmicks that doesn't make sense. Yeah, sorry about that, I just wanted to get that off my chest. And the fourth and final mask being Ika Ika, and his power is the player can flip upside down as long as there's a ceiling. I enjoyed the gameplay that features using your mask, and being able to pull off some awesome skills just by using them is really satisfying. The other collectibles are gems. They're much more different to collect this time around. Each level has 6 gems to obtain. There's a hidden gem you can find within a level, a gem you can get if you complete a level without dying over 3 times, and a gem you can get if you break all the boxes. The other 3 gems consist of collecting Wumpa Fruits, believe it or not. Wumpa Fruits now have a tally to keep track on, and to get the 3 gems, you have to collect just enough Wumpa Fruits to do so, from 40%, 60%, and 80%. If you collect all 6 gems, you'll be rewarded with a skin you can equip for Crash and Coco. You can also collect colored gems, and once you have done that, you'll be able to enter a secret area. Another collectible to collect are flash tapes. The way to achieve them is to, well, first collect them of course, but making sure you don't die along the way, then reach to the end of the level. If you successfully do that, you'll unlock some secret levels to partake in. The secret levels are flashbacks to when Cortex was still experimenting on Crash Bandicoot. There's no collectibles in those types of levels, as you just have to reach to the end to complete it. Let's talk about the playable characters for a moment. Of course, you do have Crash and Coco Bandicoot, and you can switch between the two at any time you see fit. But Toys for Bob also gave us 3 new playable characters to experience. And we'll kick things off with Torna Bandicoot. My jaw dropped when I saw her making an appearance. It was honestly great to see her back, as she just disappeared after the first game with no reason or explanation. Also, I am really digging the design for Torna. She is a dimensional character from another universe, which does explain her futuristic look. Torna's gameplay is mostly the same as Crash and Coco's with her spin attack, double jumping and belly flop, but she also has a grappling hook to hit objects, boxes, and enemies. She can also wall jump as well. Overall, I enjoyed her gameplay, and if you think my jaw dropped when I saw her, my jaw dropped even further when I saw the second new playable character in Dingo Dial. That was something I wasn't expecting at all, but I'm really glad they done it.
Dingo Doll is my favourite character in the Crash Bandicoot series, and if you want to know more about that, then I do have an old video I made about my top 10 Crash Bandicoot characters, which you can check in the description box down below. Advertising. You love it.
Dingo Doll has retired from being a villain and started opening a diner called Dingo's Diner. His diner gets destroyed by some enemies, and he goes off to find out who caused it. His gameplay is honestly underwhelming. I was hoping to use his flamethrower, but instead he uses his vacuum-like weapon to suck up boxes, use the bigger TNT crates to open up blocked areas, and hover to move from one platform to another. He's the weakest character to play as in my opinion, but let's be honest, there's always going to be one. But regardless of the change in weapon, I still enjoyed his gameplay. And the third and final character you can play as is of course Cortex. Cortex makes use of his ray gun to shoot enemies and turning them into platforms. If you shoot them again for a second time, they'll turn into bouncy platforms. He can also use a dash to reach further gaps. His gameplay overall isn't too bad, not the worst, but pretty simple and straightforward. They didn't have to add in new additional characters to play, but I'm happy they did. A cool thing I can appreciate is they don't force you to play those characters, as they are just something you can do on the side. Crash and Coco should be the center of attention, cause that's what the game is called. It's not Dingo Doll, it's about time after all. But having said that, Toys for Bob, if you can make a standalone Dingo Doll game, my childhood would be fulfilled. I'm not saying you should, but if you did, I would be a happy boy. The level designs are nicely created and looks great too. Because of the dimensional portals being open, you do get to explore different timelines and places. from the wastelands, the prehistoric, the future, and the snow, just to name a few. Surprisingly, there is a level that features you checking out inside Oxide Station. And also, what's up with this enemy? If Toys for Bob secretly wanted an overweight Oxide similar to Big Chungus, then mission accomplished. Speaking of levels, I'll now mention the vehicles. Like I said before, the vehicles control very well, and some of them are actually taken from Crash 2 Cortex Strikes Back. You get to use the jet ski, the polar bear, which I was happy to see back, and the tiny dinosaur. This game brings a good example to introduce some vehicle stages, but doesn't go overboard with it. I honestly love the soundtrack here. The game starts off with the original theme you know and love, then it'll transition to its own score. It's really nice to listen to once you give it a shot. Also, throughout the game, it offers a ton of Easter eggs and references. Even at the start, it slaps you in the face with a teaser of bringing Spyro into Crash's world. And of course, there's many other cool things to see from start to finish.
One of the main discussions flowing around when the demo was released was the difficulty. I thought people was just exaggerating over this because they just wanted to get views, but then later on during my playthrough, I understood what they were talking about.
The game does begin by holding your hand a little to get used to the feel of it, then later on when you progress, it'll then bring on some challenging moments. This game is difficult, and I will go as far to say that Crash 4 is up to par, or if not, even more difficult than Crash 1. No matter if you are a beginner or a long-time player, this game will kick your ass in multiple directions. It'll test your abilities and how you react to certain bits. And with the difficulty going up, of course people can't help but compare it to Dark Souls, and in my opinion, this game is nowhere near to Dark Souls. Yes, this game was challenging to me only because it was my first time experiencing this game. Challenge was always going to be a thing, but just because it gets harder later on doesn't mean it's impossible to complete. There is a way to go past this section, and that's by using your skills and learning from your mistakes. And then when you replay it for a second time, you already know the layout, so it'll be an easy breeze. So like I said in my relooked video on Crash 1, if you take your time and be patient, you will complete the level. So let's talk about the bosses. The first boss is Engine. I freaking love this boss. It requires focus and paying attention to what's going on. You hit these enemies that go off to Engine's speaker, and once that's done, her machine will break down for a limited amount of time. So you have to climb up and hit the machine. I enjoyed this boss battle, and it gets extra points for me personally because it features death metal, and heavy metal is my favorite genre of music. Next up is Embryo, and I'll be honest, he's probably the weakest boss in my opinion. It's mostly just a rehash of Crash 1's boss with him, but there's more space to walk around. I think it would have been better if Embryo transformed into something new and different, but oh well. The next boss is Cortex, and before I talk about him, I'll mention right now that this section will be spoiler territory. The next boss is surprisingly Cortex. It is okay for a Cortex boss battle, but I do feel some elements are taken from Engine's boss fight earlier. But other than that, it's pretty challenging if you're not too careful. Afterwards, Entropy decides he doesn't need Cortex anymore as he believes he's useless and makes the decision to go take on the good guys on his own. Coco and Crash suggest to Cortex that they should work together to stop Entropy, and Cortex agrees. Later on, Entropy finds a female version of himself and they both team up. And also, there's a bizarre moment I really want to get out of my head. We catch up to both Entrophies and using our 4 mask, ending up defeating the two. The Entropy's boss fight is pretty good, although without failing it can be pretty short, but I enjoyed it as you have to use all the quantum masks to defeat them. Once the boss battle is over, the 4 masks then close all the portals and it seems like everything is right with the universe. They all celebrate by taking a trip to Neon City. Then later on, Cortex sees a plan to finally end Crash Bandicoot by kidnapping Capu Noir and traveling back to 1996 to undo his creation of Crash Bandicoot himself. It does bring back some nostalgia feeling just by looking at the layout that is from the first Crash game. And also, seeing future Cortex interacting with past Cortex is an absolute highlight. We catch up to Cortex and begin the final boss. I love this boss fight overall as he uses the mask to his advantage and you have to find a way to overcome the dangerous hazards. We manage to beat him and past Cortex goes off to create Crash. The four masks end up sending Cortex, well the future Cortex that is, to a desert where he can't cause any more trouble and we get to the ending. Dingo Doll reopens his diner, Cortex finally has peace and quiet and relaxes, and Crash, Coco, Tawna, Aku Aku, and the four Quantum Mask enjoy some video games. And that's something I can get behind. And we also get a tribute to Mel Winker, the voice actor for Aku Aku. Rest in peace, you will be missed. So once you've beaten the game, what else is there left to do? Well, you can go back to previous levels to collect all the gems, get the fastest time to earn a relic, play through some side levels you might have skipped out on, and try to reach to 100%. If you're feeling bored of what to do, you can actually play some multiplayer in Bandicoot Battle, which I think is a pretty neat idea. Of course I have no one to play it with, but that's okay, because it's nice to know that feature is in there. Before playing this game, I wanted Crash 4 to accomplish two things. Number one, I wanted this game to be its own identity, trying new ideas to complement the Crash Bandicoot formula. And number two, staying true to its original gameplay style and doesn't go completely overboard with it. And I'm happy to say that this game ticks both boxes. I know it's early to say this, but in a way, after experiencing all the spin-offs and ridiculous stuff from this series, this is probably one of the best Crash Bandicoot games that's not a remake in a very long time. And I know it's saying a lot, and my opinion may or may not change down the line, but right now as it is, I really enjoyed my time with this game. It's everything that the Wrath of Cortex tried to be, but ended up failing. The game looks great, the gameplay style is nice, I love the presentation, and I love the bosses here. Even though I said a few slight issues I have, but they're mainly just nitpicks to me personally.
Of course, it's a must recommendation from me that you should definitely try this game out, whenever if you are a Crash Bandicoot fan, or if you want something to challenge your skills.
Well, this was unexpected. Now, I know Crash was making a huge comeback to the video game consoles, but to think that he will be included on a phone game was something I never thought of. For those who are new, hi, I'm Cheese and Crackers, or That PlayStation Nerd, or The Gaming Critic, depending on when you first started watching, and I love Crash Bandicoot. For many years, I've been through the best of his times, and the worst ones as well. But through thick and thin, regardless of what type of game I'm playing, I still love this little orange fluffy boy. And if I was to be honest, I didn't think too much about the announcement when Crash on the Run was being released on iOS and Android. But then looking back, it is still a part of the Crash Bandicoot universe, and I did say to myself that I would like to review other Crash Bandicoot games out there. And since I don't have my hands on a Game Boy Advance handheld system, I suppose this will do. Keen are the ones responsible for this game, and they're mostly known for their Candy Crush saga. I'm not a fan of those types of games, and I wasn't expecting much when they were in charge of making On the Run, so today, we're going to be checking out Crash on the Run and see if it's worth putting the time in.
And since an interesting fate has occurred, this will be... God, that's pretty embarrassing. You have to excuse me 1 second, I'll be right back.
A few minutes later.
Okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah, it's around that time here in Australia, so it's better to be safe than sorry. And since an interesting fate has occurred, this will be my first review on a phone device. So, if you'd like to see more of these in the future, then let me know, and I'll definitely put it into consideration.
If you're expecting a long-driven storytelling video game, then I hate to ruin the disappointment, but you're not going to get that. Cortex is stealing the power gems because he and his mutated army wants to take over every dimension. Meanwhile, Coco finds out Cortex's plans and creates a ton of portal weapons to use against his henchmen. So it's up to Crash and Coco to use the portal weapons on every villain and stop Cortex's plans to take over all the dimensions. I guess the story is fine, but it feels like the story here has been developed over and over in past Crash Bandicoot games to a point where I don't feel invested. The graphics, however, do look clean and nice for a phone game. I didn't notice any glitches or frame drops from my end, so I'd say it's a positive. But the story and graphics are not the most important thing when it comes to video games. What is important is the gameplay and how much value it offers to the player. So let's get straight into the gameplay sections. Crash on the Run is an endless running game. It's not like On the Run as in you have the runs after eating gallons of ice cream. Crash Bandicoot obviously does a lot of running in this game, burning a lot of calories, which probably explains why he has that upside down Dorito look. Some may look at it as similar to Temple Run, which is fine, but I like to think this game takes a bit of inspiration from Subway Surfers in my opinion, but adds in bits and pieces that Crash Bandicoot fans would recognize. But instead of running until you get caught, Crash on the Run does have a start and finish, and each level will end once you have reached from A to B. The gameplay design is very simple, which for a phone game, it's more than I can ask for. You have 3 lines you can run on, and while doing so, you can choose which lane to run in. You can collect Wumpa Fruits, hit boxes, and avoid dangerous hazards including enemies, nitros and TNT crates, and objects that can block your path. However, the gameplay can get easily repetitive as you are basically doing the same thing over and over, just with a different level theme. And yeah, I'll even say that the level designs are also repetitive as well, just by its look. And for me personally, the game got old very quickly 1 hour into On the Run.
You know what Crash on the Run really needs? And, well, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Crash on the Run could really benefit using some vehicle levels. Yeah, I know, right? How weird is it that we're all coming full circle?
Now, I don't really like vehicle levels in Crash Bandicoot games, but they do add in variety, and as long as the vehicle controls are good, then I have no problems with them being featured. Crash 2 does it well, with adding a polar bear, jet ski, and a jetpack to the gameplay structure, but not overshadowing the 3D platform genre. And without the vehicles, the gameplay on Crash 2 may have been repetitive, as you'll be doing the same objective in each level. I think adding a polar bear or maybe some sort of transportation would definitely change up the gameplay that I think it so desperately needs. Now, of course, as of this review comes out on YouTube as of this date, they might have already done that or they're working towards it, I'm not sure, but in conclusion, this game does need a new gameplay feature to get myself or other people invested. And speaking of repetitive, the music sounds alright, but after hearing the same track over and over and over and over, the same beats and instruments, I got very tired of it. So tired to a point I just mute the music so I can keep on playing the game. But like most Crash Bandicoot games, the music still sounds nice and it's also quite catchy in a way. You do have to go level by level to beat a henchman in order to face a boss. Sounds straightforward, but warping into a level is not as simple as it sounds. In order to face a henchman, you first have to see if you have enough potions. If you don't, then you'll have to head over to the lab and create one. You create one by gathering ingredients for a single potion. If you don't have enough ingredients, then you'll have to warp into an endless collection run so you can gather enough ingredients.
This might be a good spot to find.
Shut up, Donald! Once you have collected enough ingredients, then you can finally make the potion. There is a timer that'll tell you how much time you have left before the potion is completed. And I'm not talking about waiting in game time, I'm talking about waiting in real time. So, if a potion takes 20 minutes to make, you have to sit and wait for 20 minutes before you can progress. I always hated these as it really does take me away from the game. I turn my phone off to do something else, but end up forgetting about it until a couple of hours later and being able to continue on before the same scenario happens again. So now I have to wait 40 minutes before the next potion is completed. So, what's there to do in the next 40 minutes? Oh, Flowey the Flower, I love you so much. Please never leave me again. Oh, Papyrus, I could never stay mad at you. Our love for each other could never tear us apart. Please don't tell anyone about this. So once you have enough potions, you can finally move into the next level and fight a henchman. The henchmans you'll face are surprisingly references to past Crash Bandicoot games. You have a giant enemy crab, an ant drone, a pink elephant. I had to do a bit of research to find out he was supposed to be in Crash Twinsanity. Just thought I'd look that up in case I'm not going crazy here. One of the things I don't like about these henchman battles is that you will be facing them more than once, but just with a different skin to make it look different, but it's quite obvious. It's sort of like they ran out of ideas with what kind of henchmans to use. Even though their attacks are different, they all feel the same as before with little to no changes about these henchman battles. Same with the bosses, unfortunately. They throw an attack, so you have to avoid and throw these purple bombs at them, and that's it. Their designs are pretty good, but gameplay-wise, it just feels like a copy and paste. But other than the henchman battles, boss battles, and endless runs too, gather ingredients. You also have survival runs, which you can compete against other players in an endless run, and it will end once you fail at a certain part. I honestly like the survival runs. They're probably the best parts about this game in my opinion, because of how laser focused you have to be, and I like the idea of competition against other players. You also have the challenge runs in which you can run to earn rewards like the colored gem, the time trials, and breaking all the boxes in a single run. By completing the challenges, you can earn colored gems and relics to name a few, but they are absolutely worthless here, so why exactly are they here but have no value to the game as a whole? You can also earn power crystals as well, as you can use them to spend on items, costumes, and even speed up to create a potion on the fly so you don't have to wait around. But what happens if you don't have enough power crystals, I hear you ask? Well, then you'll have to spend real money, and yes, we're gonna be talking about the microtransactions. I think microtransactions and pay to wins are quite possibly one of the worst things that has ever happened in modern video games. How is it that a lot of people don't realize that this is exactly like gambling at a casino? And the worst part about it is AAA video game developers actually don't mind this idea. Pay to win is something I've always hated since day one. It's sort of like putting a cheat code in. You know, up, up, down, down, left, right, circle, square, tee-hee-hees in a tutu. But now, it's being changed up to spending maybe $5, $20, $30, $50, or even $100. And for what? Just more costumes, fast cars, and mansions in a single video game that nobody is going to care about. Back in the day when it came to additional unlocks, you didn't have to spend money for costumes or unique bonuses. You can earn and unlock these cool items by playing the video game and getting good at it. That's the reward. If you get good at the game, you will be rewarded for your actions. But nowadays, the feeling of accomplishment is easily removed because, hey, why bother going through the grind where you can just purchase the reward in 2 minutes or less? It's like trying to build a relationship. Why bother spending months of talking and spending time with each other when you can just search for an R18 website and be satisfied in a few minutes? That sounds stupid if you ask me. But here's the point I'm trying to get across. Money is always going to come and go no matter what. But is this the way how you want to spend your cash? Why not use your money for something valuable and actually worth something to a lot of people instead of,
Hey Mom, look, I bought a skunk version of Crash Bandicoot. Isn't that cool?
I've realized I was having a bit of a moan, so I'll move on, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from. I know plenty of people don't mind this, and that's fine. I'm not in charge of what you spend, but one has to question if spending money on a product like a phone game is really worth it at the end of the day. Money doesn't always last long. But you know what really does last long? And no, I'm not talking about any sponsorship ads or enhancement pills. I'm talking about respect. That's what will last long. Crash on the run? More like cash on the run. Because it looks like money is escaping from people's wallets and not many people are batting an eye. And to be honest, I stopped playing this game after seeing the next boss I had to encounter, which was Dingodile again in a different skin this time around.
And this is as far as I'm going. While I will experience different areas and creatures to face, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of updates as the months go on, but I think it got to a point where the game just became boring for me. So yeah, I think right now, Crash on the Run is a boring video game.
So that's my thoughts on Crash on the Run. This game does have a bit of detail, even though you can collect Wumpa Fruits while spinning. And you can only obtain 4 Wumpa Fruits in a jumping box, which we all know that a jumping box has 10 Wumpa Fruits, and that is a fucking insult for me personally as a Crash Bandicoot. I can see the developer's passion for On the Run, and only time can tell if the game will become something special. But I don't think this game is for me, for now at least. I'm not the type of person who will wait in real time for a product to be built and be able to progress into the game itself. I'd much rather prefer going straight into a level instead of just waiting around in order to go into. Maybe if I'm chilling at a doctor's appointment or having a 1-hour lunch break from work, perhaps I'll go over my phone just to see how the game is going and how many updates there has been compared to early release. But for now, Crash on the Run is something I wouldn't recommend unless you want to waste time.
Okay, I'm not going to waste too much of your time. You know why you clicked on this video, because today we're going to be talking about the newest Crash Bandicoot game that just came out this year. That's right, we're talking about CTR, Crash Team... Oh fuck, wrong video game.
Crash Team Rumble is the newest video game in the Crash Bandicoot series, developed once again by Toys for Bob, the same company that brought us Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, aka why is this platinum trophy so difficult to acquire? I like to think that Crash Bandicoot so far has been pretty successful after coming back with the Insane Trilogy, and because of that game, it has inspired many other video games to have remakes of their own. And after having a lot of enjoyment and giving out positive feedback with the Insane Trilogy, Nitro Fueled, and It's About Time, I'm 100% not sure about Crash Team Rumble. I will go on to add before getting into it, even though in my heart I will always love and adore Crash Bandicoot, but as far as hype levels were before the eventual release date, I was not that hyped, which is pretty strange if you ask me. And I realized why that was the case, and it could be summed up in just 2 words. Online multiplayer. Crash Team Rumble was developed for the purpose of online competition against many other online players, a genre that has really taken over this era of video gaming for quite some time. But that whole concept doesn't really suit Crash Bandicoot to me. He was always known as a 3D platformer. Boot up the game and get straight into a level with little to no time. And even without an internet connection to your console, there's still a range of content to explore, like in Nitro Fueled for example. You can optionally play online if you want to, but outside of online, there's a bunch of content to check out. Story mode, arcade, time trials, battle modes, the list goes on and on.
Crash Team Rumble, on the other hand, must require an online connection, and if you don't have access to online, then you might as well ignore this game and save your money for something that'll be worth your time. Look, I'm not trying to point out that this game is terrible. I really had an enjoyable time with it. A lot more than I thought I would, to be realistic. And you can see my reaction to that in my gameplay video I did a while back. Check that out if you haven't seen it already. I put in a lot of effort in these gameplay videos. Or at least that's what I believe anyway.
Crash Bandicoot, do you want to know why I got these scars?
I think what I am trying to say is this game will divide gamers into two sections, much like with Crash Twinsanity. There's people that will love this game and its competitive online matches, while the other side of people will simply say, it's not for me, which is totally understandable. And I accidentally spat on my monitor. Fuck's sake. And I'm on the side of not being a massive fan of online multiplayer. I'm more of a story campaign gamer nowadays in my adult life. But even then, I still want this game to really succeed. There's so much potential this game has with later patches and further updates, but I don't know, man. Something tells me in the back of my mind, Activision is lurking in the corner like a cat staring at you from a distance, just waiting for the right moment and the right time to get their filthy hands on it, completely destroying what is Crash Bandicoot's resurfacing to the modern video gaming industry. But still, I will do my best to be absolutely biased, fair, but also critical if necessary about Crash Team Rumble. I will be talking about my experience with the game when I played it on day one, and my experience when coming back to this game 1 month later, just to see if any of my thoughts have changed or seen any future plans within the game itself. I didn't want to fully talk about CTR, Crash Team Rumble to be exact, early on because I wanted to get all the information and my experience come naturally through my brain so I can give out my honest feedback without missing anything. That's what I like to do when talking about newer video games. I do apologize that this review took a lot longer than usual to develop as I had things to do, like moving places from one house to another. You get introduced to a tutorial section where you learn how to play the game itself. The main objective is to grab as much Wumpa fruits as you can and make your way back to your base to donate the fruits into points. And the first team that reaches up to 2,000 points will be the victor. You partake in 2 teams of 4 and you can select what characters to play as. From Crash Bandicoot, Coco Bandicoot, Cortex, Dingodile, who's someone I'm totally not simping for by the way, and Brio, and Trophy, and a new character named Catbat. A hybrid of a cat and a bat. And honestly, this is just one step closer to creating a Batman villain named Man-Bat. But I can dig that jacket though. Catbat definitely has some good drip. Each character is listed based on 3 categories. The scorer, where they focus on grabbing and scoring points. The blocker, when they help defend your base or stop enemies from scoring points. And the booster, where they help boost their teammates by easily collecting relics. And sure, you can technically do all of that for any character you desire to play as, but each character will have a different moveset and a different playstyle, which I can appreciate. So who you decide to play as is important, and what the rest of the team chooses to play as is just as important too. It's all team-based at the end of the day, and if you want to get those W's, then you have to work together as a team. My favourite character to play as would have to be Dingodile, as from my experience, he could be OP as hell. You also have power-ups, and they can also help boost your team up to get the advantage, like Wumpa Stash, and when using it, you can collect even more Wumpa fruits than before, and Healing Fridge, allowing you to heal up faster, just to name a few. It allows you to have that extra oomph for your team as you work your way to winning a match. The maps for where you get to partake in are pretty decent. You get areas back over in Crash 4 from the canyon, the garden, and the summit, and many more. I honestly would have liked more maps however, maybe take some areas back from the Insane trilogy like the snow and the sewers, or if you really wanted to, you could use the 10th dimension from Crash Twinsanity. That'll be pretty cool in my opinion. But that is probably just me overhyping myself a bit too much. And we all know what that can do to us. So in a match, you can obtain gem boost, and by succeeding, your team's percentage for getting points will go up for a limited amount of time. And when it runs out, you have to wait for it to recharge before using the gems again. You can also collect relics, and by grabbing enough, you can donate the relics to get certain abilities for your character and for your team. They range from cannons, using a mask, explosive jumps, and many more. But then you have the giant relic stations that will appear somewhere around the middle of the map, and this is the key determining factor on who will win the match. Basically, when your team activates it, it gives your team a massive boost. From sandstorms, Uka Uka's bombardment, and Big Bonsai to name a few. Of course it will depend on which map you're playing on. And throughout the game, you can unlock different costumes, hats, and backpacks to name a few, allowing the option to wear them. Spyro's uncle, is that you? Overall, and like I said earlier, I enjoyed this game mode a lot more than expected. It could be intense in areas when it's neck and neck to get the victory, and I like the whole idea of working together as a team. You could do everything solo and carry your team, but at that point it'll be 1-on-4 and that'll smack your ass very quickly, like that one weird night in a hotel room you end up regretting. So it's all about making sure everyone plays their part and trusting one another to get that W. So, that was a pretty fun game mode. Let's have a look at what else Crash Team Rumble has to offer. Let's see, you can play a practice match, learn how to play, partake in a private match, and that's about it. So, how much did this game cost me anyway? 65 Australian dollars? Shit! Yeah, this is gonna bring me to one of my biggest complaints when grabbing this game on day one. There's not much content within the game itself, which really does beg the question on why Crash Team Rumble wasn't free to play right from the very start if this is what they bringed out. Say what you want about Fortnite and Fall Guys, but at least they were games you can download and play for free, unlike this game in particular. But I'm not going to complain a whole lot about it, as I am going to be assuming there'll be even more updates down the line, and as long as there's no additional cost for characters or costumes, then I guess I'll be okay with that. But if I am going to be spending 65 Australian dollars on day one, yeah, that's how much it cost me at EB Games, I would have expected to have more content than this. If anything, I almost feel ripped off, thinking it should have been $30 at best. But at least I am glad that this game didn't cost me 100 Australian dollars, otherwise my face would have turned into this flaming Cheetos. It's totally not hot, by the way. Yeah, nah, fuck that, that's actually pretty hot. So really, when playing the game, this is all you can do. And even though I've stated earlier that this is a very fun game mode to try out, it can get old pretty quickly in long playthroughs. Doing the same strategies again and again, collecting relics, earning gem boosts, and scoring points, which can be tedious at times. And I think it's why I feel like they should have been more different match types on day one. Team deathmatch, capture the flag, hardpoint, and even a simple 2-on-2 rumble match to really spice things up. But from what I've experienced at least, that is not the case. Well, potentially not yet, but you get my drift. I had this weird bug in my tummy that maybe this is a game Toys for Bob didn't want to make at first, but I'm going to make a huge bold statement that Activision really pushed Toys for Bob to make it happen. Maybe I'm right or maybe I'm wrong, but you can't deny Activision's business practices over the years. Producing a video game with online features, forcing players to buy DLCs for more maps and weapons, and once it's all done, create the next game 1 year later and the cycle begins again. Not saying it's going to happen with Crash Bandicoot, but never rule that option out, as they could be just one decision away from really milking the series to a point where they run out of new ideas and slap on questionable moments that'll totally ruin the objective on what made Crash Bandicoot successful in the first place. Just like what happened all these years ago. And I don't want Crash Bandicoot to go back to that stage. I mean, we had Crash riding Titans and yelling out pancakes out loud. That was a dark period. But I am thinking way too much into this, as I only want people to enjoy Crash Bandicoot and fall in love with it the same way I did back in the PlayStation 1 era. Especially with the new generation of video gamers out there, I want them to have that same set experience like I did. And this game is not that. So I suppose before we wrap things up, let's go back to Crash Team Rumble 1 month later after its release and see if there's any changes at all. I said this to myself that there'll probably be new characters being added towards the future, and Ripperoo has been included in the game, and there'll definitely be more by the looks of it. I could just imagine having Tiny Tiger, Crunch Bandicoot, and Nina Cortex being added. Spyro would fit pretty well up here too. I was hoping for new power-ups, but it looks like it hasn't happened yet. Same with the maps, it looks like they haven't added any new areas to partake in yet. But there is a new game mode, thank God, called Zap Trap, which is basically the same as your regular match, but this time, when you and your teammates get close to each other, you create an electrical barrier that'll one-hit kill an enemy. It's a pretty neat idea if you ask me, even if the main objective is the same. So it's fair to say that Crash Team Rumble will slowly but surely get more updates with new characters, new types of matches, and maybe, just maybe, even more locations to try out in future patches. And hell, even while I'm editing this video, there might be even more content they've added and I haven't noticed it yet. It is still unsure if there will be additional costs for later battle passes, but time will only tell. However, I'll just make one final point before getting into the verdict. It took a lot longer than usual to find a match online. I mean, it only took a few seconds or so a while back in 1 week of its release, but now it's getting longer to find one nowadays. I don't want to assume that many people have stopped playing and have moved on to other games, but when this is happening on a regular basis for me when coming back to Crash Team Rumble, the numbers certainly don't lie. Which really begs me to say this again, and I cannot stress this enough. Crash Bandicoot is not an online game. Crash Bandicoot is a simple, easy to play 3D platformer that rewards players for putting time and effort when you're working to get that 100% completion. And it is okay to create a few spin-off titles here and there, because that's what Crash Team Rumble is, let's be honest. But never drift away to what made Crash great in the first place. And that was Crash Team Rumble. The game mode itself is fun to partake in. The game plays well, I like the power-ups and the relic stations to use, and I like how every character plays differently and has a unique moveset. Compared to something like Crash Bash, where every character plays identical to each other. Stop asking for a Crash Bash remake, cause it's never gonna happen. The only fear I have out of this game is its future. Will more people eventually get invested in what Crash Team Rumble has to offer? Because if you look past at any negative feedback, I can see that this is a pretty decent video game, and I do really want to listen to my heart that this game will do well because hey, it's Crash Bandicoot after all. But it's really hard to ignore all the shady stuff within the game, and the fact that Activision is behind the wheel on this one. As strange as it's going to sound for a modern Crash Bandicoot game, I don't think I can recommend this game. For now at least. When playing this game on day one, there was a lack of content that really bummed me out, and even now, there's still not enough. What kept me going, however, was working towards getting that platinum trophy, baby! But after that, there wasn't really much else to do. It feels like I don't have anything else much to say because the game doesn't have anything else to offer. Perhaps down the line, roughly 6 to 12 months, there'll be just enough features that'll make me recommend others to try this game out. But for where it stands right now, I can't really see myself doing so. In the title, I question to myself if this game is wasted potential. A video game that has a lot of potential, but I feel like this game will fail in the long run if many players won't be invested in it long term, making this game go to waste. So, we'll have to wait and see if Crash Team Rumble will be wasted potential.